Arel is a young boy who lives in a fantasy world where everyone has a blessing in the form of a class, given to them by their goddess. This class decides what they are going to become when they grow up, and it is revealed to them when they turn 10 years old. Today is Arel's big day since he just turned 10 and is going to be assigned a new class. His parents and his sister are excited at the prospect, fantasizing what kind of cool class will Arel get, but he himself looks uninterested in this entire system. After having breakfast, they all quickly move towards the church where a priest stands near an altar, touching underage boys, which is a universal thing in every world, I guess. He starts telling each kid what is going to be their class, as some become blacksmiths, and some become chefs. Arel's sister tells him that classes are also influenced by what your parents' classes are, so he is probably going to get something really cool. When
his whole family encourages him, even the people present say he should get a legendary superclass, even more than his parents. This is because his mother is a warrior and his father is a wizard, meaning this kid is like a Fortica, there's no one else like him. And as they say, the boy hears these two words from here and his eyes see nothing but. The man examines says, "Oh Marcus, son of the reversed one, what brought you here? You have no classes, no skills, and don't be sad, of course." The boy was shocked and his sister and mother kept crying, but our hero Marcus is in another world busy grinding and doesn't have time for that. After that, his father, oh, they are sitting and letting their son, the Marcus, train in combat. Of course they keep saying to him, "Oh son, we don't want you to be like this. You are even less than us and a burden on us, but if we could get another child we would." So he tells them, "I will keep training and never give up." What makes matters worse is that his sister comes and says, "Don't worry, my brother, my dear, just listen to me and I will give you a good life, but what is this thing like Twinks?" Our hero, finally getting fed up, takes them to the negotiation table and tells them, "I will not give up because I have been training in combat since I was little, and even though the damn thing was eating me alive because of it, I now have some skills due to the hellish training I went through with it. That's why I won't be measured nor will I fall into the depths of the hobby due to frustration." Of course, his family tries to encourage him. They are about to dance from his words, but Arel leaves them and goes to get beaten up in the forest. And there he sees the kids who acquired combat skills without any effort or hardship. The kids, as soon as they see him, ask him, "You are useless, you are of no use, and your situation is hard even for an unbeliever. What brought you here with us?" Arel tells them, "I came to train, it's none of your business." The kids then mock him and say, "Train for what? We don't need all this trouble. We will try our new skills and that's it." And from the kids fighting each other, we learn that they gain the legendary swordsmanship skill, which will allow them to move the sword with great ease, unlike our hero. He says to them, "I want you to know me, you too." The kids bully him and say, "You are useless, meaning we will finish you in a second." And Arel tells them with complete indifference that he has no problem fighting them both. So one of them says, "Okay, mister, I'll face you alone, but don't forget to activate the protection skill." In this, my friend, is a skill unlike the classes. They get it as soon as they are born, and it protects them from hidden injuries and protects them from serious blows. Anyway, the kid keeps bullying him and says, "Don't worry, I won't hit you until you die." Arel isn't affected by a single letter of his speech, so if he gets angrier and out of sheer anger, he attacks. Arel easily blocks his attacks, and what's missing is fighting with him with his little toe, to the extent that the second kid says to him, "Oh my son, don't shake," he could finish him off. But against whom? This one can't even push him back one step. The kid, oh my, his look is very bad, he can't tell right from wrong. So he asks his friend to attack him at the same time, and luckily Arel dodges his attack. All he's thinking about is that this is not training because they are at the same. But after that, he decides to use his training and the moves he learned and attacks them. The guy literally doesn't even try to see him, and Arel pounces on one of them. But while he is cursing Arel, who wants to kill him, he stumbles over his friend who is sleeping on the ground and Arel says to him, "Will you leave your friend sleeping alone?" and gives him a blow that finishes him off too. After that, one of them wakes up and says, "No, Arel," with great anger, "how dare you attack us when we are not ready? What an amount of cowardice and meanness you have." And the second, of course, agrees with him and confirms his words. But a certain person intervenes and lets them know that they must remember their battles and learn from them, because in a real battle, no one shows mercy. And I wish you would stop embarrassing yourselves more than this. Pull yourselves together and leave. The kid was still arguing with him too, but his friend warns him because this person, the swordsman, is famous among. Anyway, this person attacks them and goes to talk to Arel and says to him, "Forget about the insects you are facing. I want you to duel with me, and I will show you what real combat is." We learn from these kids that this boy is the son of the village security chief, and we learn that his father used to ask Arel's mother to fight monsters with him because of her strength. But the boy sees that Arel's mother is weak and not as strong as his father, which is why he is angry and wants to prove to everyone that his father is the strongest. So Arel says to him, What's it to me, you idiot? You came to fight him because your father is weak. Anyway, my mother is the strongest warrior in the village. This boy lets them know that children acquire the talents of their parents, and that if he defeats Arel, he will prove to everyone that his father is the strongest. And at the end of his speech, he says to Arel, "Be careful now, I became a swordsman a year ago and I kept fighting every day, not like those slackers standing there. I kept striving and learning from my father until I reached this level with which I will defeat you." And Arel says to him, "It's clear from your words that you love your father very much and also respect him, meaning your grandfather, your diligence and all. But this only came to you, my friend, my buddy, my man. People, my mother grabbed me and deprived me of well-being until she taught me combat. And a guy like you, who just learned a year ago, won't defeat me." And at that moment, the battle between them begins and fiery clashes in the two are fighting very professionally. Look, the guy can't believe how a useless person like Arel is able to withstand all these attacks. At this time, Arel realizes that the boy is indeed stronger than the two he fought a while ago, but he notices that the boy is attacking out of anger and tries to find and exploit a small opening to hit him. And indeed, he finds it and is about to finish him off. Except he is shocked when the boy delivers a double blow to him. Arel succeeds in blocking one of them, but the second one slams him into the wall. Arel asks him what happened and how he managed to defeat. The boy lets him know how to use his skill, which allows him to strike 2 blows with 1 move, and a weak person, sometimes even a strong one, can't block it. Arel is about to respond to him, but the boy says to him, "That's it, you have been crushed and defeated." After that, we see Arel, who is asleep, and his sister is waking him up, and he doesn't want to wake. So his sister says to him, "If you don't wake up, I'll give you a kiss." Arel is asleep, not in his mind, but when his sister is about to use her secret weapon, which is that she wants to kiss him, he immediately gets up in less than a second, hits her, and flips her to the ground. So his sister keeps screaming and yelling at him. After they have breakfast together, his sister asks him, "Are you going to train today as well?" He tells her that he will go to the forest. His sister says to him, "There's no need to tire yourself, I will become stronger and defend you." Arel says to her, "Keep dreaming," and leaves her and walks away. We learn from his sister, who is worried about him, that Arel, after being defeated by that boy, and him getting beaten every day, black, blue, or bored, her mother tries to reassure her and says to her, "Come, I want to show you something." And she takes her to show her a box full of broken swords, and they are the ones he broke. The sister asks her, "What are these things?" Her mother lets her know that all these swords are the ones he was training with and they shattered in his hand. And it's clear that competing with people of his level made him motivated and train more. And even though his sister is happy for him, she suddenly stops and tells her mother that she should make the world better so her brother can live comfortably. At that time, Arel is training with all his might in the forest. After suffering, he finally succeeds in using the double blow. But just as poison can be hidden in honey, we see one of the forest monsters preparing to attack Arel. Arel uses the double blow with all his might and finishes it off. And while he is feeling the pleasure of victory, he hears a terrifying sound of a huge monster from the heart of the forest. Arel is shocked because the monster is close to the village, so he decides to go and inform the village guard. But on his way, while walking, he hears someone calling for help. Arel changes his decision because there is no time to go and save him. And when he arrives, he sees the boy who defeated him in the previous training, injured with it, and in front of him is a mountain ogre fighting. And Arel notices that the boy was getting beaten up just like him. Monsters had attacked him. Arel retreats a few steps behind the monster, then he tries to plan an attack on it. And when Arel finds that he will fail because of the huge size of the monster that is about to crush the boy, Arel attacks it and literally turns it into shawarma. The boy was still asking him, "What are you doing here?" but finds himself falling to the ground. Arel catches up with him, knowing that he must be treated quickly, and since his own treatment is broken from the battle, Arel gives him his own treat. And as soon as he drinks it, he grabs Arel and asks him, "How did you do that?" Arel says to him, hold on, not even a thank you." The boy says to him, "I am thanking you, but you must tell me how you used my skills." Arel lets him know that he kept training until he succeeded in learning it, which he is doing like an error, because Arel, without it, supposedly shouldn't be able to use any of the skills. The summary is that Arel finds the boy confused and not understanding anything, so he avoids him excessively and says to him, "You must have agility and precision and wake up in the morning to run and so." And finally and not least, I learned it because of you, because with my training with you, I managed to understand this skill. The boy, of course, his mind is spinning and he doesn't understand anything. Arel lets him know that he was waiting for this day for a long time and was getting beaten to vent and avenge the loss he suffered. Arel lets him know that he was waiting for this day for a long time and was getting beaten to vent and avenge the loss he suffered. The boy says to him, "Since you are so enthusiastic, then let's duel now." Arel is shocked and says to him, "Are you sure you will do this after your battle with the monster?" He lets him know that this is the least he can do to thank him. "I don't know what this thank you is." and thus we confirm that this world is literally running on its back. At this time, the two of them prepare for battle and use the same skill against each other, and the surprise is that Arel turns the double blow into a triple blow and hits the boy with it. The boy is amazed and says to him, "Oh my father, how are you like this? You tough guy, how are you so awesome?" Arel lets him know that this move is not a skill he has, but rather he acquired it through his training, and thus he can add to it and modify it as he pleases. The boy can't believe it and keeps insisting that Arel is a useless good-for-nothing kid, and he must be using something to deceive him with it. And after a long, extensive argument without any benefit, the two of them prepare to deliver one blow that will determine the loser and the winner between them, the two of them. And indeed, the attack begins, and Arel with his triple blow makes the boy stick to the ground. After that he says, "Today the roles have been reversed and you have been defeated by me." So the boy asks him, "How did you get this strength? You must have been deceiving me in our first battle and didn't use all your strength." Arel lets him know that he was using all his strength, but he managed to become stronger and faster through training. The boy can't bear it and says, "Oh Ardan, you strive with your eyes," out of sheer embarrassment. Arel, who returned the insult multiplied, leaves him and walks away after literally teaching him a lesson. A few days later, we see Arel and his family sitting, and in a gossip session, his mother says to them, "I heard that the boy, the son of the village security chief, traveled and went to the city of Barsel, which, God knows its story, I don't know anything." And he asks his mother, "What is this city of Bars, Mom?" His mother tells him that it is famous by the name City of Swords and that she worked in a guild there when she was young, and there she kept fighting and enjoying her time with her friends until she met, luckily, her husband and married him. Arel hears this from his mother and decides that he wants to go to this city and prove himself to the world. A journey, riding a carriage, heading to the city of Bregia. The carriage driver starts talking to them, letting them know that as soon as they pass that hill, they'll be able to reach the city. It turns out that this man and woman are duelists and are very excited to get there, and not from any ordinary class but from the advanced class. This girl says to him, "I'm telling you, boss, since we're both from the same class, what do you think about us teaming up to form an awesome team?" But he says to her, "Get lost. I don't like forming teams or dealing with people, whether they're cool or not at all." She says to me, "Master, what is this dirty talk you're saying? Do you know that I use the sword in my duels? So it's natural that I have to move quickly, and these are the most suitable clothes for me." And look, these two are just about to start arguing with each other. The carriage owner says to them, "Calm down, guys. I know you're both awesome, and that's why I want to see your skills right now." He says because a pack of orcs is blocking their path and they must deal with them to continue their journey. These two, who were acting all high and mighty, thinking they were so awesome, the moment they see those orcs, they're about to lose it. There is a very large one among them, and he is the Orc King. Damn, I'm talking to the carriage driver, saying to him, "Are you foolish, master? You want the two of us to handle this pack? You want a full team?" Then we see one of the passengers grabs the hand of this duelist and says, "Please, you must protect us." But he says, "By God, are you foolish? Protect who? I can barely protect myself." This waiter gets up, exposes him, approaches me, leaves the carriage, and bolts from the place. This righteous girl approaches and says, "I am not prepared to risk my life for some scum like you." As for the carriage driver and the residents, it's also clear that we must flee. But suddenly he is surprised that the person who was riding in the back of the carriage also gets off. He starts advancing with steady steps towards the orcs and says to them, "You're being foolish, my son. Where are you going? Come here, come back." But this righteous boy isn't interested in his words and decides to head towards those orcs at full speed. Yes, my friend, exactly as you expected, this is Arel. He starts pouncing on those orcs and takes them out one after another. As for those riding in the carriage, when they see what's happening, they are astonished because the boy suddenly disappears in another place. The carriage driver can recognize the skill that Arel is using. It's called the lunge skill, and indeed it is an exceptional skill, and not just anyone can use it. But once you're surrounded, it won't have any use, just as he predicted. Suddenly, we see the orcs manage to surround Arel from everywhere. He is waiting, wanting to see what this paper can do exactly with the orcs surrounding him. And if you think this is the end for Arel, you're wrong, my friend. Because when they pounce on him at once, he can use one of his skills through which he can eliminate all the orcs around him. Those sitting in the carriage are amazed and can't believe what they're seeing, especially the driver, because he can recognize the skill as the one who created it is the Sword Princess herself. Through it, you can defend and attack at the same moment, and its name is the Victory Dance. But to my knowledge, this skill is restricted to girls only. This makes him have many questions, and how did this boy manage to learn it? Anyway, let's return to Arel, who is about to face the Orc King himself. After he manages to dodge his attack, he is about to land on his throat and literally pierces it with his sword. With this, Arel managed to eliminate the entire orc pack by himself. This makes the three of them extremely happy because this righteous boy managed to eliminate all the orcs by himself. After that, we see Arel approaches the carriage owner and says, "I think the problem is solved now. Let's continue our journey because I want to go to the City of Swords and start training there to become awesome. The carriage driver says to him, wait a second, aren't you sure that you yourself are already awesome? And this young boy suddenly appears like a nuisance and starts talking to Arel, asking him about the skill he possesses. As for Arel, he lets them know that his story is he doesn't have any skills. Everyone is utterly shocked, even though he is awesome. And to know how Arel managed to acquire all these skills, we must go back 5 years. The day is eventful. After Arel manages to master the sword-splitting skill, he tries to show it to his mother. The first time she sees it, she is amazed and says, wait a second, did I imagine that you're able to use the splitting skill, or what is this talk? He says to her, no lady, you weren't dreaming. I actually performed the skill in front of me. His mother then starts to feel guilty because she thinks everything happening is just illusions. It's clear until now I can't accept that Arel actually has no skills, and that's why I started imagining things. Arel silences her and says to her, what is this drama you're in? I actually learned the skill. And he tells her, yes, it took me some solid training, but in the end, I managed to invent the skill with my own abilities. I learned that skill. So all I want now is to start inventing all the skills you can use. After I master all your skills, I want to test them in the City of Swordsmen. She is standing in front of him, utterly bewildered, and doesn't understand what he's saying exactly. Hey lady, where did you go? I want to learn your skills now. When she realizes the truth, she is extremely happy and calls out to her husband and says to him, look, your son is awesome and a genius. By God, lady, calm down. Why do you always like to exaggerate things? Important boss, let's return to Arel in the present. We see the carriage owner starts talking to him and learns that he has finally managed to reach the City of Swordsmen. And Arel, when he gets a look at it, is surprised that there are hundreds of duelists present in the city. The carriage owner says to him, you're right, and be careful, among them are many people from the advanced classes. Arel says to him, surely you mean the same people who possess the same skills you possess. The guy says to him, what are you talking about, man? I'm just an ordinary carriage driver. Arel says to him, not at all. Ordinary people who drive carriages don't have this vast amount of information about swordsmen like you. The guy says to him, it's clear you've seen through me, and you're right. Yes, it doesn't show on me, but I was once one of the holy knights from the advanced class. Arel says to him, well, since you have these awesome skills, what makes you work as a driver? There's none, man. I was forced to be drawn into battles I was tired of, so I decided to stay away from all wars and duels so I can live a quiet life. So, boss, if you want to start in the city here, the first thing you must do is join a guild, because most of the duelists present here participate in tournaments. The majority come here to earn some money and funds from dueling, but be careful, you won't be able to join these tournaments unless you join one of the guilds. Arel says to him, I know all this talk you're saying, and that's why the first thing I must do. My goal from coming to this city is to duel the largest number of knights so I can gain experience. The guy says to him, it's settled, boss, but be careful because there are many guilds here that are shady and I don't advise you to join any of them. After he leaves him and walks away, he starts walking through the city. He notices a guild named Clover's that introduces itself as one of the noble guilds. They don't accept just anyone. He must be a knight from the advanced class. Just as there are guilds of nobles, we see there are guilds that are from the bottom of the barrel, like hunters or thieves, anything. But our friend isn't interested in all this talk and is Suddenly we see a girl approaches him and is about to attack him, but our friend decides to let her fall to the ground like a fool. When she gets up from the ground, she says, this boy managed to dodge my attack without even looking at me. It's clear he is different, awesome, and unlike all the people coming today. So she gets up from the ground and says to him, you look new and came here to join a guild? He says to her, correct, that's what I intend to do. She says to him, I heard your voice, glory to God. I'm actually looking for new members to join my guild. She gets up, takes out the contract and says to him, I'll tell you what, boss, we want your generous signature on this contract. Here he confirms the matter is very strange. He says to her, I'll tell you what, I refuse the offer. And when he leaves her and walks away, she grabs him and says, I want to know now, why did you refuse my contract without even reading it? No, it's clear you're putting in a lot of effort to recruit just anyone into your guild without a doubt, so I'm sure it's a weak guild with no members. When she hears this, she says, wow. She says to him, look, the matter isn't that strong, you know. I'd like to let you know that our guild is very famous. He says to her, yes, surely famous with a rotten reputation. She says to him, you haven't left me any other choice. What do you think about joining my guild? In return, we can go out, have fun, and mess around together as you want. But Arel lets her know that he isn't interested in all this dirty talk at all. And our friend confirms that the personality of the girl in front of him greatly resembles the personality of his older sister. He says to her, right, since you are one of the residents of this city, where is the largest guild here? She says to him, what are you talking about, man? Isn't it clear that this is excessive rudeness? Anyway, the largest guild here is the Black Bleed Guild. Regardless of anything, this guild managed to include 8 duelists from the rank. After Arel finds out its location, he decides to go there. He starts talking with the guard and lets him know he wants to join the guild. He says to him, there's no problem, but first you must pass the test. And to enter the test, you must register inside first. When he enters, he is forced to stand in a long queue, but despite all this, he is very excited. When his turn comes, the employee starts talking to him and says, look sir, you won't be able to register for the test. You must be from the advanced duelist class. But Arel says to him, no, there's no such talk, I am without any class. This makes the employee burst out laughing and says to him, as long as you don't have any class, what brought you here, get out. Then he hears the people talking behind him and learns that as long as he doesn't have any class, he can't join any guild. But despite this, Arel doesn't give up. He says, I'm telling you boss, register me for the test, I'm sure I can pass it with merit. The employee says to him, the rules are rules and can't be changed. Since you don't have any class, get out. Then they are standing, we see some knights entering the guild, and all of them are utterly shocked. Those who entered now are considered among the strongest duelists present in the city. When Arel confirms that he can't join that guild, he goes to another one alone, and again gets rejected. He goes to a third one and again gets rejected. He ends up sitting alone, lamenting his fate because until now he hasn't been able to take the test in any guild. So he is forced to resort to the last solution and takes out the letter of recommendation that his mother wrote for him so he can join the guild she was in back in the day. And here he confirms that his mother wasn't exaggerating and was right when she wrote him this letter. So he goes to the address written on the letter. He is sitting minding his own business when we see the same girl steps on his head and says to him, as I expected, you still haven't managed to join any guild. Why don't you stop all this nonsense and hassle you're going through and join my guild right away? He says to her, wow, it seems you still haven't lost hope. Since you have free time, why don't you go look for someone else? So he decides to brush her off and go to his mother's old team. This girl is behind him, following him, and says to him, look, I'll talk to you with complete honesty. My guild lacks members and could collapse at any moment. But if you join us, we might solve that problem. To the point that she starts begging him. Despite all these pleas, Arel is refusing to discuss it with her. She says to him, what is this stubbornness you're in? In this situation, look, I'm willing to do anything you ask of me in return for you joining my guild. But when she raises her head, she is surprised that he isn't even in the place anymore. He left her and bolted, but despite all these insults, she decides not to give up and that she must get him to join her team at any cost. It's clear this girl has no dignity. As for Arel, he continues walking to the address on the paper until he reaches where the place is supposed to be. At the same time, we see the same sticky girl arise there. She says, I'll tell you what, why don't you come take a look at our place? Then Arel says to her, lady, get away from me for God's sake. If you have time to waste, find someone else to waste it with. She says to him, man, don't stop. The place is close, look, there it is. He is surprised that the building belonging to her guild is huge. She says to him, didn't I tell you, master? By the way, our guild was very famous in the past. Well, why do you still not have any members if you were famous? She says to him, in truth, I won't hide anything from. Yes, we had a glorious past, but our guild is considered the weakest guild at the present time. And what I'm sure of is that I will make the Dragon Fang Guild, under the leadership of the Dragon King, become awesome. Arel, when he hears the name of this guild, starts remembering his mother's words. Well deserved. She told him that the guild she was part of back in the day was the Dragon Fang Guild. So it turns out the recommendation he has now has become useless, and he is forced to go with her. When they enter inside, they meet the guild leader, who is drinking beer and singing until he notices them. The girl approaches him and says, what are you doing, man? Didn't the doctor tell you before that you shouldn't drink beer while singing? But he says to her, shut up, there's no such dirty talk. And Arel here notices that this guild leader's arm is cut. After that, we see this great guy starts talking to Arel. He says to him, look, this guild is on the verge of collapse, so don't waste your time with us and find another guild. After he leaves the room they are in, his daughter starts talking to Arel and lets him know that her father was one of the best duelists present here in the city. But after he lost his arm, his condition became as you see it now. And I think after you've seen all this, you will refuse to join us. But Arel shocks her and lets her know, no, on the contrary, I want to join the guild. She says to him, what are you talking about, man? Wait, are you sure of what you're saying? If I had found any other guild, I wouldn't have joined you in the first place. Anyway, boss, we see they sit together and sign the contract. After she takes it from him, she starts reading his data and learns that his name is Arel. As for his special class, she says to him, wow, wait a second, where's your class, my? No, exactly as you read, I don't have any class or any skill, she says to him. Stop joking, master. No, there's no such talk, of course. But he confirms this talk to her and shows her his ID card which has no skills listed. She says, huh? And after that she gets up holding the sword and says to him, so you're the son of a, you've been bothering me all morning and you don't even have any skills? Are you foolish, master, or are you foolish? What is this dirty talk? And the master, she starts crying. We see a girl enters on them and starts saying to her, what's wrong, girl? Why are you crying? Why? By the way, boss, this girl's name is Rainer. She runs to him and says, finally, we managed to get a new member, but unfortunately he doesn't have any class. When she hears this, she is wronged and says, without any class. Don't let it be what I'm thinking. Don't let it be what I'm thinking. When she looks at Arel, she confirms that he is indeed the same person. She is amazed by this talk and says to him, you know me? No offense. She says to him, wow, you managed to forget me, bro. We're from the same town, isn't that right? Not only that, we dueled a lot together before. Arel starts focusing on her and says to her, no, I haven't seen this face before, but I remember I used to duel someone with red hair like you. No, I'm sure I am the person with the beauty you see now, of course. This girl, when she hears this, is extremely embarrassed. Anyway, this girl starts thinking to herself that she is the daughter of the captain of the city guard where they used to live. My friend, this is Madiha, who was with us in the last episode. Friend, she has developed and be beautiful as the world. Arel says to her, I thought you were a boy, your hair was short, and also you've grown up, haven't you? She says to him, well, naturally, the last time you saw me was 5 years ago. Rainer starts talking to him and says to her, wait a second, do you mean the awesome boy who had no skills back then managed to defeat you? Is this the same person? Madiha says to her, correct, this is him in the Madiha starts talking to Arel and says, look, don't let it get to your head that you managed to beat me 5 years ago. I'd like to let you know that I trained a hell of a lot and managed to increase my strength. And you being here now is the best opportunity for me to settle the score with you. And since there's a training ground downstairs right now, let's go train together. Indeed, after a few moments, we see they arrive at the training grounds. He is surprised by it because it is large. Anyway, after that, we see the two go down to the training grounds and start preparing for the fight. Uber! As soon as the duel begins, Madiha, the owner of the trouble, attacks him with the sword-splitting skill. He says to himself, it's clear that nothing has changed from 5 years ago, because this is the same technique she used before. This makes him feel a bit confident in himself, and he tries to block it as usual with the same skill. But here comes the shock for him. He can't block the skill and gets hit by it. So he starts talking to her. He says, I don't understand anything. What exactly happened? Madiha says, didn't I tell you before that I'm stronger than the version you met 5 years ago? And we see she throws her sword to the ground, and it turns out it is extremely heavy. She starts letting him know that this sword is 5 times heavier than any ordinary sword. In short, you won't be able to defeat me if you try to respond to me with the same techniques. After that, she picks up her sword again and is about to pounce on him. He confirms that her strikes are indeed very heavy, but despite this, the movement of her sword hasn't changed, rather it's faster than before. If he continues to block her attacks, without a doubt his sword will break, and he will be defeated by her. So he tries to distance himself from her and says to her, it's clear you've revealed your trump card, that's all you have, so I'm not forced now to block your skills. Madiha isn't interested in his talk and tries to pounce on him. The moment she gets the chance to attack him directly, she doesn't hesitate for a single moment. Here comes the shock for her. He disappears from in front of her. In a few moments, he appears from behind her and hits her on the head. This makes Madiha surprised, and she says to him, wait a second, you're supposed to be injured. How did you manage to disappear from in front of me? He starts letting her know that the skill he used is called the shadow skill. This makes her shocked because this skill is very rare for anyone to be able to use it at all. But despite this, she tries to attack him again with all her strength. The next morning, Arel woke up and sat with Lena and Lilia to discuss the guild's next plan. Lilia announced that now that the Dragon Fang Guild had 3 members, they had enough people to participate in the team battles. She said they would enter the guild tournament happening next weekend. She explained that the tournament consists of 3 single-elimination individual matches, with each team allowed up to 5 members. Lena was a bit worried because they were only entering with 3, but Lilia reassured her, saying it was fine as long as both of them were B rank and wouldn't face anyone from the A rank. This was the first time Arel heard about the ranking system, so Lilia quickly explained it to him. She said there are 4 ranks that determine a duelist's strength, and in the city of Berea there are about 500 duelists, but only 20 of them are a rank. Lilia and Lena are from the B rank. Arel wasn't ranked yet, but since he managed to defeat Lena and Lilia, she saw him as at least high B rank or above. She said as long as they were lucky with the match draw, they had a great chance of winning. She said she would go check the bracket posted in the fighting arena. Meanwhile, Lena said she would go train a bit until Lilia returned. But before she left, Arel called her because he needed a favor from her. He asked her, since she was a strong duelist, if she had any skills other than raw power. Lena said yes, she had a skill called Just, which made her defense last longer than normal. Arel thought for a moment and said that skill would be very useful for him in battle. Then he asked her if she could hit him multiple times. She blushed and said shyly, "Can't we do a normal training session like everyone else? You're asking for strange things." But Arel quickly said, "Wait, you misunderstood. I just want to see if I can endure the hits without using defense. Maybe I can copy that skill too." Lena was shocked and said, "You're crazy. These skills are gifts and it's hard for anyone to acquire them. They're determined by your class." But he said, "You saw with your own eyes how I copied the twin slash and shadow step skills before, so I should be able to copy this one easily too." He asked her to hand him her sword. She gave it to him but was sure he wouldn't be able to lift it because the sword was specially made and 5 times heavier than normal swords. But Arel grabbed it and drew it with ease, starting to swing it as if it were light. She asked him, "How are you doing that?" He explained that while the strength skill increases muscles, training also strengthens the body, and Arel had been training every day for years. Lena realized she was wrong and said, "Okay, I'll help you with the training, but if you want me to hit you, don't blame me later." After a while, Lilia came running back screaming and saying, "Disaster! The bracket has us against the Black Blade Guild." She said that team had 8 A-ranked duelists. Despite this, Lilia tried to reassure her saying, "We can beat them, don't worry." But when she finished speaking, she found Lena actually hitting Arel, who was on the ground. She asked her, "What are you doing?" She replied, "He asked for it." The funny thing was Arel was covered in bruises, but then he stood up and said very calmly, "Since I got beaten up, what's for lunch?" Finally, the day of the tournament arrived. When they arrived, they heard people talking, saying, "What a shame, Team Dragon Fang against Black Blade," and of course people refused to bet on them because they knew they would lose. Everyone was cheering for Team Black Blade. Lilia got very angry and said, "How can these people see us as so weak?" She went over to them and started arguing, but Lena held her back and said, "Leave them, they're not worth it." Makes her feel he didn't care about anything, but he was surprised and asked, "What are these bets? Are bets legal here?" Lena said, "Yes, all the matches here can be bet on. The odds right now are 20 to 1 against us." Lilia got angry again and said, "That means no one expects us to win, but if we win, what of money?" She said she had taken a new loan and mortgaged the guild building to bet on themselves. Arel then began to understand why the guild was drowning in debt. Suddenly, they heard laughter behind them. They turned and saw George, the leader of the Black Blade Guild, standing there laughing sarcastically. He said, "I came to wish you good luck here," and continued, "It's a pity to see a guild that was once our rival end up like this." He also said, "I heard you recruited that useless guy you have." Lilia replied angrily, "It's none of your business," but he said, "I was the one who arranged the bracket myself because I wanted to see you collapse with my own eyes." She said, "You're cheating, you manipulated the result." He said, "Consider it a favor because you'll get to see what it's like to face a famous guild like." He told her, "Forget about being able to beat us." After a while, the main event began. Arel and his team entered the arena and looked at the list of Black Blade opponents. They were surprised that their leader wasn't participating. Arel was surprised and said, "Maybe they're looking down on us." But Lilia said no, because those entering are all among their strongest duelists and all are a rank. Arel got very excited and said, "Great, with this situation I'll be able to discover and see new skills." But Lilia said, "This isn't a picnic, Jean. The fate of the entire guild is being decided here." The match began. The announcer announced a fighter from Black Blade named Gio. When it came to announcing a Dragon Fang fighter, she paused for a moment and said, "Arel the classless." This was of course because she didn't know his rank. The entire audience started murmuring, not believing that an unranked person could enter and participate in the tournament. Gio laughed sarcastically and said, How can I waste my time with someone like him? And immediately began his attack. He immediately used the speed skill and charged at Arel, hitting him in the chest, but what he found was just an afterimage. Arel used the fade skill, making him see an illusion. Geo quickly analyzed the situation and thought Arel could use 3 shadow clones, but unfortunately, his calculations were wrong. After Geo managed to destroy the 3 clones, he lowered his defense, and at that moment, Arel seized the opportunity, attacked him, delivered a blow, and managed to defeat him. The entire audience, of course, exploded in amaze. Lilia and Lena were very happy, but Lena was still shocked and said, "Impossible, how could he defeat him so easily?" But our hero Arel was thinking about something else entirely and was sad that he didn't fully understand how Geo's thrust skill. The second match was against a duelist wielding 2 swords. When he began to attack him with his swords, Arel successfully parried his attack with ease and countered with a twin slash that sent him flying. And so Arel managed to win 2 matches in a row. The third was a very strong bare-fisted fighter. The match was very fierce and intense from the start. The fighter tried to surprise Arel and kick him with his leg, but Arel managed to disappear and dodge his attack. At that moment, the fighter was amazed at how he could disappear so quick. Suddenly, Arel appeared behind him and delivered a blow with the sword he had, managing to defeat him and knock him to the ground. Of course, Lena couldn't believe that Arel had defeated 3 A ranks alone, and Lilia began to dream that he might defeat all 5 by himself. In the next round, he faced a guy with a strong shield. Arel was superior in speed but couldn't break his defense because of his shield. The fighter began to accuse him of lying and said, "You must have a rank and are hiding it from us." "There's no one without a skill who can do all that you're doing," Arel replied. "All of this is thanks to my personal effort and training." But the fighter said, "Your words are nonsense. Effort never defeats anyone who has a..." Arel replied, "Well, if that's the case, then why are you losing now to a teenager like me who has no skill?" The fighter got very angry at his words and then their fight continued. The fighter tried to attack him with a strong blow with his shield, but Arel managed to parry it and delivered a strong kick, knocking the shield out of his hand. The fighter was shocked and felt terrified and said, "The kick you just did, I recognize." Arel laughed and said, "Well, that's natural. I copied it from the previous fighter." He kept hitting him with the same kick multiple times, and at that moment, the fighter felt defeated and said, "How could you copy it so easily?" "That kick requires continuous training and a very long time to master," he replied. "You're actually right. Some moves require a very long time, but this move, as soon as I saw it, I could copy it easily." Then Arel picked up the shield that was on the ground and used the same technique, hitting him with the shield, knocked him to the ground, and managed to defeat him. And so Arel managed to achieve 4 consecutive victories without any defeat. We see the audience began to doubt and said, "He must be a fake. It's impossible for him to be unranked." So the judges decided to verify and contacted the Guild Association to get his official assessment. The announcer asked him, "Do you agree to show your card to the people?" He said, "Yes, no problem. The important thing is for people to calm down." She displayed the card on the screen and it was clearly written that he had no rank. The people fell silent and were shocked. Lilia said, "If I had known he was this strong, I would have bet all the money I had." Lena said to her, "You need a psychologist to stop this gambling you're doing." But she admitted that Arel's strength was truly supernatural. The last fighter from Black Blade entered the arena, and Arel felt that this man was completely different from the others. The fighter's name was Masamune. Just from his stance, Arel felt danger. Masamune said, "It's good that you felt the danger. That's why you were cautious and kept your distance from me." Masamune said, "I was planning to use my ultimate move to finish you off with one blow." And as soon as Arel heard the word ultimate move, he decided to take a risk and get closer to him. Then Masamune drew his sword with lightning speed and tried to behead him, but he was surprised that Arel had disappeared from in front of him, and he didn't know where he went. He looked around and found Arel behind him saying, "True, you're fast, but I trained under someone faster than you." He used his mother's skill called Storm Thrust and delivered many fast, consecutive blows and indeed succeeded in defeating him and knocking him to the ground. After that, Arel was announced as the winner. Lilia and Lena looked at each other, not believing that they had won without even moving from their spots. Lilia ran to him and wanted to hug him, but he moved quickly and dodged her, laughing and saying, "My sister used to surprise me with the same move." He looked at Lena and saw she had opened her arms as if she was going to hug him, but when she realized, her face turned red and she said, "Sorry, I got carried away a little." He said to her laughing, "It's okay, I didn't mind you hugging me, but I wish you had taken off your armor so I'd be more comfortable." In the stands, we see George was looking at them celebrating, his face red with anger, of course. He said in a voice, "I won't let you get away with this, Arel. You'll pay the price for this defeat very soon." At night, we see the 3 of them celebrating the victory. Lilia was happy, saying, "There's nothing better than celebrating after a win." Arel was surprised when he saw her drinking and said to her, "Can you drink?" But Lena was holding juice and kept laughing at him. Then Lilia approached Arel and boldly asked him to marry her. Arel immediately refused outright and without any hesitation. Lilia said jokingly, "Are you shy or what?" He replied calmly, "No, not at all, but I never thought about being with you ever." She replied, "What a pity. If you had married me, I would have fulfilled everything you wanted." He replied to her, "If I ever think about getting married, I'll marry someone like Lena." Lilia was shocked and Lena's face turned red with embarrassment. In a flustered voice she said to him, "You should have humored her instead of embarrassing her." Arel asked her calmly, "Why do you think I would humor people?" Lena replied, embarrassed, "Because people say I'm like a man because I'm always training." Arel said to her frankly, "I actually used to think that too before." Lena was startled and said, "Am I that bad or what?" But he said, "No, I don't mean that at all." But Lena said, "It's fine. My whole focus is on becoming the strongest duelist and I don't have time to dress up and be like other girls." At that moment Lilia got very upset and decided to tease Arel, and of course her style bothered Lena a lot, and she kept yelling at her, embarrassed, and asked Arel to come and continue training with her. Arel immediately agreed and went with her so they wouldn't argue. During training, Lena was hitting Arel hard so he could help himself learn a new skill. At that time, we see Rude, Lilia's father, entered after hearing the sound of their fighting. He didn't know they had won the tournament and said to them, "What is this chaos? Are you venting your anger because you lost?" Lilia replied, "We didn't lose, we managed to beat the Black Blade team." Rude was surprised and said, "They must have sent you beginners." But when he found out that all their opponents were from the A rank and that Arel, who was classless, managed to defeat them alone, he began to realize that this kid was really not ordinary. But even after this news, Rude wasn't optimistic and said, "The big guilds will surely snatch him away soon. At that time we'll be lost again." Lilia said to him confidently, "Don't worry, I have a genius plan to make him stay with us forever and never leave. And the plan is for him to marry me." And before her father could respond, Arel said coldly, "I never promised her anything like that, and your daughter is foolish and says anything." When Lilia heard this, she was upset and her heart was broken. But Arel at the same time said to Rude, "Why are you so desperate in your life? I want you to fight to the end like your daughter, and if you can't, then just cut off your other hand and be done with it." Rude got very angry and said, "Since I lost my arm, I'm no longer a duelist." "A sword fighter without a sword is worthless," Arel replied. "I don't have a rank either, but I never gave up and became a duelist through effort and continuous training." Rude didn't reply to him at that time and left silently. But Arel didn't care about him and talked with the girls about how they could restore Rude's enthusiasm to fight again. Arel said, "I wished I could train with him one day and learn his skills, but unfortunately that's not possible now." Lilia suggested, "Why don't you go down to the dungeon beneath the city? Then you'll be able to learn new skills there." Lena immediately agreed because she needed more training before the Sword King tournament. Arel asked, "What tournament is that?" Lena explained, "It's the biggest tournament in the City of Swords which determines the strongest duelist in the kingdom." Lilia said, "I knew you would participate, so I prepared a participation form for you." Arel took the paper and, with utter coldness, tore it in half. But the paper she had given him wasn't a participation form. It was a marriage contract. Arel grabbed her by the arm and pulled her hard until she apologized, screaming, "I'm sorry." In a dark place, an evil witch was reporting to George, leader of the Black Blade Guild, that she had been watching Arel's group and said they were going to the city dungeon tomorrow. George smiled sinisterly and said, "Good, let's arrange a little accident there to make that kid disappear from the face of the earth for good." The next morning, Lilia entered Arel's room, imagining that when she woke him up and he saw her first thing, he would be enchanted by her beauty and immediately agree to marry her. She approached him quietly so as not to startle him and tried to wake him up in her own way. But before she could finish, Arel immediately opened his eyes and suddenly said, "What are you doing here? Are you stupid or what?" Immediately Lena was startled and tried to defuse the situation, saying shyly, "Good morning, my dear, my husband." And when she approached him again, he pushed her face away. Lilia screamed and said, "Why are you so cruel to me?" He said, "You're the crazy and stupid one." She said angrily, "If you married me, you would live the happiest days of your life." So he grabbed her, tied her hands to the bed, and left her there so his nerves could relax a bit from the headache she caused. After that, the three went to the dungeon entrance. Arel was surprised by the huge crowd there. Lena told him it was because the Sword King tournament was approaching and all adventurers were going down to train. There was a long line at the magic teleportation circles. Lilia explained that these magic circles allow people to return to any floor they have reached before instantly, but they cannot be used for a new floor. She said she had reached floor 12, and Lena had reached floor 14. Arel said, Great, I'll go with Lena to floor 14 immediately. Lilia immediately corrected him. No, smart guy, the magic won't teleport you except to the floors you've reached yourself first. Then she said excitedly, I'll take you with me myself, my dear. But Arel stopped her and said, no, Lena must come with. Lena here was shocked that Arel insisted on taking her with them. When they entered, they found armored knights moving on their own. Arel and Lena drew their swords immediately. One of these knights attacked him and he quickly parried the blow, but the second one attacked from behind immediately. Arel immediately jumped back, surprised by his speed despite the heavy armor, and immediately cut its neck with his sword. But the armored knight began to move, and it was as if nothing had happened. Lena was fighting the second one and said to him, these armors don't have souls, they're just empty armors animated by the dungeon's magic. Arel focused on its leg and hit it, so the knight immediately fell to the ground. Lena also finished off the knight she was fighting and said to him, be careful, these knights regenerate after a while. Arel then smiled and was happy, saying this was the perfect training to improve their skill. Lilia came in teasing them after they finished fighting and said, was the fight that hard for you heroes? Arel replied, but you didn't help us at all. Then he asked her, what's your rank? She said proudly, I am a duelist or rank. How about becoming my disciple and I'll teach you? He said, I don't need to learn from you because my mother was a sword duelist and her rank was higher than yours. Lilia was shocked by his words and said, what do you mean? Do you mean I'm a failure? He said, I don't mean that of course, but your presence with us is completely unnecessary. Then they continued on their way. While walking, they heard a scream from afar. They ran towards the sound and found a boy fallen in a pool of blood, saying he was caught in a trap and his friends were hurt. Lena said, we must help him and get him to a safe place. But the boy said, no, please help my friends first. Lena immediately agreed and said, okay, let's go in and help them. But before they entered, Lilia stopped them and said, wait a minute, we're not helping anyone for free. He has to pay. The boy said, I've seen you before in an interview. Lilia remembered he was talking about an interview where she was dressed nicely, but the boy had seen her in a news report talking about her failed guild and asked her later, you like money, right? She replied, of course. He gave her a lot of money, and she immediately agreed. Arel said this boy had something wrong, but Lilia said, it doesn't matter, the important thing is the money is real. Let's go. They kept following the boy. Arel noticed the boy was bleeding, but standing and walking normally, which wasn't natural because someone whose defense magic is depleted should fall. He thought to himself, this must be an act, but let's keep following this boy and see what the end is. They reached a door to a room full of blood, but there was no trace of any bodies, only a gold coin in the middle. Lilia, like a fool, rushed to take it immediately, and as soon as she touched it, a magic circle activated. Everyone was surprised. Boy himself was pulled into the trap with them because the circle enlarged and pulled them all in. They were all transported to a strange place underground. Lena said fearfully, this place is deeper than floor 14 and there's no exit. The room was empty. The boy started screaming and crying, and when they asked him, he said, I was a pawn to bring you here so you would die. Suddenly a huge knight appeared from a magic gate. The boy immediately said, this is one of the Sword Kings. Before he could finish his words, they were surprised as the knight drew his sword and struck a powerful blow. But before the blow hit them, Arel pushed Lilia's head down to dodge the sword strike, which almost took the boy's head off and only cut his hair. Lena was shocked and said, what was that attack he just used? Arel replied, that's a very rare skill used by the Sword Kings. Suddenly we see the knight disappeared and appeared in front of Arel, delivering a strong blow that sent him into the wall. But thanks to his long training and high endurance, he managed to get up again and parry his blow, saying, I lost a bit of my defense energy. Then he tried to attack the knight, but the knight disappeared again. Arel said, he really has the legendary Sword King skills. Instead of being afraid, he became excited. This is a great chance to test myself against him. Everyone was shocked by his calmness, and he immediately charged at him and began fighting. The knight used the aura skill, making the pressure in the room immense. Everyone fell to their knees except Arel, who remembered his mother's training when she did this to him before, and at that time he could barely stand. But now he managed to resist it and attack. He hit the knight with the infinite shattering strike, breaking it into pieces. After the battle, Arel drank some holy water to recover. Lena and Lilia asked him how he knew the Sword King skills even though they had never seen them before. He told them he learned them from his mother, and that although she always used the Sword Princess style, in truth she was the Sword Queen herself. This was hard to believe, but Lena believed him because she knew he didn't lie about such things. She asked why his mother hid this. He said, my mother wasn't seeking fame or the spotlight, so she always hid the truth about herself. Lena laughed and said, if I had known that, I would never have challenged you. Arel said, thank God you didn't know. I needed that fight to develop myself. Lilia said, let's get out of this terrifying place quickly. Suddenly a light appeared. Arel's heart raced, thinking it might be a new enemy, but Lilia said, This is the exit gate, so they all left. Back in the city, we see Rude was in a bar drinking. He heard some young men talking about how George set a trap for a group of adventurers and left their friend to die with them. Rude heard the guild's name and went crazy when he understood they were talking about his daughter. He rushed to them quickly, grabbed them and broke the table saying, "What is this talk?" And before he hit them, George appeared with a sinister smile and said, "I wanted to give you some bad news." He said, "Your daughter and her friends died in the dungeon." Rude screamed at the top of his voice and said, "Haven't you had enough? You took my arm and now you want to take my daughter too?" He fell to his knees, calling her name, and suddenly Arel and the girls entered. Everyone froze. Lilia said, "We're alive, you traitor." George, of course, was shocked and said, "How did you survive?" She said, "Thanks to Arel, we defeated a sword king and came back. And we also got a confession from the boy who tricked us that George was behind the whole trap." George began to get nervous when he remembered they had discovered him, but then he remembered that there are no laws governing the dungeon, meaning no one could arrest or punish him for what he did there. He left the place with full confidence and said, "There's nothing you can do against." As soon as he returned home, he was very upset and angry and started breaking everything in his room, saying, "I was the strongest one after I got rid of Rude and Arel's mother, and now I'm being rivaled by a boy with no rank." He couldn't believe a young boy like Arel had become stronger than him. Suddenly he heard a strange voice coming from the sword in the room. The sword began to speak and said it could grant his wish if he freed it from its restraints. It began to introduce itself saying, "I am the enraged sword. Koruo, let me help you so you can get your revenge." We continue our story, and the next day we see Lena and Lilia sitting in the hall. Lilia looks very worried about the preliminary schedule for the tournament matches and has just discovered that she will face Arel, so there is no hope for her to reach the finals now at all. Farrell told her not to be so upset because her chances of winning the tournament were weak from the start anyway, and that's because her level is low. But his words didn't make her feel better at all. Lena, fortunately, is not in the same group as Arel in the qualifiers, but she will still face very tough opponents, so she must do everything she can to pass these qualifiers. Lilia said she intends to put in all her effort, even though she knows she could never beat Arel from the start. So, that's why she said she would go down to the dungeon now to continue training. She asked Arel to come with her to protect her if any danger occurred, but he didn't want to go down to the dungeon again. At that moment, Rod came out to see what was happening, and after learning that Lilia intended to enter the dungeon again, he warned her to be careful because no one knows what other trap George might have prepared. Obviously, he doesn't want his daughter to die. Lilia saw that her father was genuinely worried about her, so she reassured him and told him she would be careful the whole time. This relaxed Arel a lot, and he immediately wondered about the changes that had suddenly happened in Rod. But of course, after he was about to lose his daughter because of George's cruelty, he understood that he couldn't remain weak just because he lost his arm. So he decided to start training again himself. After that, the day of the qualifiers comes and all the people are gathered to watch the duels between the fighters. Unfortunately, Lilia lost her first match against a random person despite all her training, and she was very upset. Arel tried to console her and told her that her failure was expected, so she shouldn't be so upset. But his words didn't comfort her. As for Arel, he won all his matches so far, and the next match will be the final in his group. Lilia knows he is very strong but warned him to be careful because the girl he will face has unique skills. Arel was surprised, wondering what unique skills meant. He thought he had seen all kinds of skills in the dungeon, but Lilia clarified to him that until now, he has only faced normal sword skills, while this girl has enchanted sword skills, meaning she can use magic with her sword while fighting. Arel was surprised then that there is no rule prohibiting the use of magic in the sword tournament, but in the end, he didn't care. He entered the arena, and the first thing the girl said was that she doesn't want to hear any excuses after the match that magic is against the rules because magic is officially allowed in the tournament. Arel told her he is always ready for any challenge. The battle began, and the girl kept throwing fireballs at him one after another, so he kept jumping in every direction to dodge them. He tried to attack her up close to hit her, but she immediately blocked the attack quickly. Then she threw another fireball at him from a very close distance, forcing him to retreat. At that moment, Arel understood her style well, and told her that this attack style is convenient honestly, because she can attack from afar and up close at the same time, but in the end, Her level is average because she hasn't mastered either magic or the sword yet, and she just prefers to throw many attacks randomly. The girl got very upset and told him, "You won't repeat those words again when you see my final technique." The girl immediately used magic to envelop her sword in fire, and this scene attracted the audience's attention because it is a very rare move. She started hitting him with waves of fire, and Arel was fascinated because her movements were unpredictable and also hard for him to predict. He told her that when this skill is truly mastered, it will be very strong. But right now this skill is still so rudimentary that he can still block it while moving. He told her if her sword skills were at least at Lilia's level, it could have actually caused him trouble. But it's clear she came to a tournament relying solely on her brute force. The girl got angry and said, "It's impossible for me to lose to a failure with no rating." But at that moment, Arel used the dual sword strike skill and extinguished the fire on her sword. Then he rushed at high speed and hit her with a strong blow that made her lose consciousness. Thus, Arel was declared the winner of his group in the qualifiers. But what's on his mind now is whether there is a special way he can train to learn this magic himself. After a few days, Lilia woke her father up from sleep and told him it was time for Arel's match in the tournament. But Rod told her he wasn't going. Sani, she started pulling him by his arm and begging him to get up because the guild had already reserved seats for them. But he insisted he didn't want to attend. Lilia asked him if he was afraid of meeting George there. He told her no, that's not the issue. He said he had started training again a few days ago and discovered he had become very weak. So he might face difficulty if he enters the tournament now. But when Lilia heard him talking about winning the tournament as if it were a simple thing, she got very irritated because she herself couldn't qualify for it. She kept insisting and told him he must come today, by force if necessary, and pulled him off the couch to get dressed. When he was ready, he and she started heading towards the arena. Despite all his protests, Lilia knew he would come to watch in secret anyway, because he never misses a chance to see members of his guild shine, and Rod couldn't deny that fact. Meanwhile, at the arena, Lena was in her place, very tense and worried before her match. Eros appeared and asked her, "What's wrong? It's the first time I've seen you so worried." She told him she can't calm down. This is the biggest tournament in the city, and the worst part is she won't know her opponent until match time, so she doesn't know who she'll face, what type they are, or even their rating. Suddenly, the announcer declared that the first match today would be between last year's champion George, the Sword Emperor, and Arel. Arel was surprised that the first person he would face was George, but he was always ready for any fight, so he entered the arena to face him. But as soon as George entered, everyone was shocked by his appearance. He had become much uglier than before, and Arel felt a sinister energy emanating from him. Rod and Lilia were in the stands, and Lilia asked why George looked like a monster now. But her father felt something was very wrong, and suddenly he noticed the sword in George's hand. He screamed and told Arel to get away from him immediately because that sword has a demon sealed inside it. The demon was surprised and said he didn't expect anyone to recognize the sword that quickly. It was clear it had completely taken over George's body. The legend says that this is the sword used by the Sword King to kill the demon who was cursed by his curse, and the demon's spirit was imprisoned inside it. But this sword was supposed to be locked in the royal palace vault, so Rod didn't understand how George got it exactly. The demon said it was just a matter of time before some fool searching for power would release him. And that's what happened with George. He's the one who freed him now. This demon, named Dirigal, intends to destroy the whole world, but no one understands why he chose to wait for the tournament to start before revealing himself if he wants to start destroying the world anyway. Lena couldn't believe that Rogel was real. She had learned in history that he is an ancient demon summoned by an evil person long ago to destroy the world, but everyone thought it was a myth. People started screaming and running, but Rogel was enjoying the sounds of terror. Before anyone could leave the arena, the demon created a barrier and imprisoned them all inside. No matter how hard they tried to escape, they couldn't. He intended to take his time killing them one by one, but he noticed Arel standing in front of him ready to fight. He mocked him and said, "Are you crazy, standing against me with a sword instead of begging for mercy?" But Arel told him confidently, "I will defeat you." He told him that long ago he was defeated by the Sword King, so that means you can lose normally and be defeated. The demon admitted that he was indeed defeated before, but he told him there is no Sword King alive now, meaning there is no one who can stop him now. Arel told him, "You are wrong about two things. First, there is at least one Sword King alive in this era. Second, even if there is no official Sword King, I am confident I can defeat you." The demon laughed and said he must be crazy, but his laughter stopped when Arel used the legendary step and suddenly disappeared, reappearing in front of him and nearly slicing his neck. The demon was shocked because the skill is supposedly only usable by the Sword King alone, the one who can perform it. He went crazy and asked him, "How can you do it?" But Arel wasn't in the mood to talk and began attacking nonstop. The demon laughed again when he remembered he was in the body of the Sword Emperor, so he attacked with force and landed a blow on Arel's shoulder, knocking him to the ground. But when the dust cleared, Arel was standing normal. The demon was enraged and said, "How can a child withstand that blow?" But Arel told him, "Clearly my endurance skill training is starting to pay off." The demon began to get nervous because nothing was working against him, and at this speed he would be defeated. Indeed, Arel used the infinite strike skill and struck the demon with hundreds of blows all in 1 second and managed to make the demon collapse, defeating him. George's body was lying on the ground, completely exhausted, and everyone thought the demon had been neutralized. Arel started to walk away, but inside Rogel's mind he was cursing and swearing, not wanting to be sealed again. Knowing he couldn't defeat Arel, he thought it best to escape. He needed a new, strong enough body. He thought of going to Lena, but Arel was close to her, so he decided to target Rod. Suddenly the sword flew from George's hand towards Arel, but Arel managed to push himself and Lena away at the last moment, so the sword hit the wall. After the dust cleared, we were surprised to see Rod holding the sword. The demon Rogel managed to take control of Rod. Then we see him holding the sword to Lilia's neck and saying to Arel, "Let me go or I'll kill your wife." Arel calmly told him, "I never married Lilia in the first." But the demon recalled Rod's memories and thought he was lying because in Rod's memory, Lilia was always pestering her father and telling him she would marry Arel one day. At that moment, Arel lost the desire to save her and was preparing to attack. But Lena screamed and told him to stop because Lilia is still their friend. Arel told her, "Don't worry, the demon could never hurt Lilia or finish her off." When the demon heard him saying he couldn't hurt her, he told him, "Fine, I agree with what you're saying. Now wait and see for yourself." He tried to move his arm to cut Lilia's neck, but his arm refused to move. Rod was still conscious inside his body and would never allow himself to kill his daughter with his own hand, so he began fighting the demon inside him to expel him. The demon offered Rod a deal, saying, "I will give you the power you want to regain your former glory if you let me take control." If this offer had come long ago, Rod might have agreed, but now thanks to Arel, he understood that anything is possible through hard work and training, and he doesn't need a demon's power to return to his former level. He regained control of his body and threw the sword towards Arel. Immediately, Arel struck the sword, splitting it in two, but he felt it wasn't enough to destroy Rogel and eliminate the sword permanently. So he used the infinite strike technique, striking the sword tens of thousands of times, managing to break it into very small pieces, and succeeded in completely eliminating Rogel, making him disappear forever. The strange question here, honestly, that I don't understand is, if breaking the sword was enough to get rid of it, why were they carrying it and preserving it from the beginning in the first place? Of course, the audience, Lilia and Lena, were utterly shocked and amazed by his strength and how he managed to defeat the legendary demon Rogel and eliminate him so easily, saving them from him. And we continue our story, and after that, in the guild, we see that Rod succeeded in reigniting the passion for the sword again. With the fame that Arel brought to the guild, there were many applicants for him to train, and he was training them hard, yelling at them, telling them to stop relying only on skills and learn to defend themselves. The students were pleading, asking him to have mercy on them, saying they couldn't take any more. On the other hand, a student was hiding behind a nearby wall, and Lilia saw him, so she asked him why he was skipping, saying, "You and the group are supposed to be training." No. He told her that Rod is too violent in training, so he needed to rest a bit. Lilia admitted that her father had become very enthusiastic about the sword since he met Arel. The boy asked where Arel was as he hadn't appeared all day and no one had seen him. So, Lilia replied to him and said that Arel actually left the guild, and Lena left too because she went after him. Lilia was holding herself together, but she couldn't bear it and immediately broke down crying because she thought it was unfair for Arel to leave and abandon her, and this, of course, because we all know she loves him and wanted to be with him. As for Arel, he is now returning to his hometown. The driver was surprised that he managed to win the Sword King Cup after staying in the city for a short time. He asked him, "Are you sure you want to leave while you're at the peak of your fame?" Arel told him that there's nothing left for him to learn there, so it's pointless, and also, he wants to go back home to truly test his strength. And of course, he will test this strength against his mother, who taught him when he was young, and see if he can actually defeat her or not. In Arel's city, his mother was picking flowers in the garden. He tried to approach her without her sensing him, but she called out to him without looking in his direction and said she was happy about his return. She could tell he had become stronger and could sense his presence from meters away. When Arel told her he won the Sword King tournament, his mother was very happy because she had also won it when she was young. Just as he was about to request a spar to test his strength, she decided to show him her superiority. She dashed towards him at high speed, and he was surprised by her reaction and couldn't react in time. She was joking. If I had a sword instead of this flower, he would have been in big trouble, and that's why he wants to train with her again. She said she doesn't mind sparring, but if they do it now, they'll ruin the house, and said, "Let's go to the training grounds behind the mountain." Arel immediately agreed, happy. As soon as they arrived, she told him she was eager to see how far her son had come. Suddenly, she attacked him with a fast, strong step, but since he had seen her attack before, he was able to predict her move and managed to respond, raising his sword just in time to block her strike. Then Arel jumped into the air and used 2 different strikes against her, but she managed to block all those attacks before they reached her. She was happy that he managed to combine 2 skills. Arel asked her what she used to block, because he hadn't seen a blocking skill like that before. She said, "I didn't use a skill at all, I was just swinging my sword normally." From her way of blocking his attacks, he learned not to always rely on skills. In the city, people heard a loud noise coming from the forest. They were all scared, thinking a powerful monster was going to attack them, but it turned out to be Arel and his mother, the Farah beast, training at their maximum energy. His mother tried to use an aura of intimidation skill to slow him down, but Arel had already mastered it, so it had no effect. She was amazed at how much his level had risen and said to him, "Get ready, master, because from now on I will use all my great power against you." He said the same to her, and they charged at each other, both using all their strength. At that time, Lena returned home. She also didn't find anyone and thought it might be related to the noise she heard, but that wasn't important now. She wanted to see Arel. She knocked on his door, and suddenly a young girl opened it. Lena thought she was Arel's little sister and asked if he was there or not. The girl looked at Lena and thought she was a beggar girl from her clothes and tried to close the door. Lena didn't understand why she was calling her a cow and wanted to close the door in her face. Lena held the door and said she wanted to talk to Arel. The girl refused and said, "Arel would never care about someone like you." At that moment, Arel and his mother returned, and his mother shouted at the little girl, saying, "We must respect the guests who come to us." The girl was happy when she saw Arel and ran to hug him. She asked why he and his mother looked so messed up. Farah said they were sparring and took it a bit too far. Arel's sister asked who won. Farah said that Arel was the one who defeated her. Lena was shocked at that moment and said, "Farah, the Sword Queen, loses to Arel." But Arel told her, "The reason I won against Farah is that she hasn't been at the peak of her level for years, after she stopped training for a long time." He didn't want to delude himself just because he beat her. Farah said to him, "Don't say it like that, as if she's just an old woman and that's it, no need anymore." He said to her, "You are still beautiful, and of course I would never call you an old woman." After that, they went in and sat at the table to talk. Farah wanted to ask about Arel's adventures in the Sword City, but she was more interested in knowing how he met Lena, because she loves romance stories. Arel said they were living together in the Sword City, and immediately his mother's face lit up with joy. But Lena clarified that they were in the same guild, and there's nothing between them, and "I wish you wouldn't misunderstand." Arel asked, "Why did you come suddenly like this?" She said to him, "I want to ask you, why did you leave the guild suddenly?" Arel was surprised because he was sure he submitted a formal resignation before leaving, meaning he didn't just run away. But Lena said, "I don't mean the procedures, you could have at least said goodbye to us before you left." Arel hadn't thought about that point at all. Farah cut them off, happy that he found a friend who cares about him so much that she would travel to ask about him. But Lena said that this is her country too, and she was returning anyway, and asking about Arel wasn't the only reason for her visit. After that, Lena kept begging Farah and asked her if she would accept her as a student. Farah wasn't expecting that request at that moment, and before she could respond, someone opened the door suddenly. The voice was Evans's. Evans entered looking for Farah and said he needed her help with an emergency situation regarding a terrifying sound coming from behind the mountain a while ago, and they needed to prepare in case it was a monster. Farah and Arel immediately understood that they were the cause. Farah, knowing she would be scolded if she told the truth, wrote that she had dealt with the monster and finished it off. Evans didn't ask many questions. The important thing was that the village was safe. After things calmed down, Evans noticed Lena and asked, "When did you return?" At first he didn't recognize her because her appearance had changed from when she was young, but when he saw her grown up, she reminded him of his deceased wife. He asked Lena what she was doing in Farah's house. Farah said that Lena is still a student who needs to learn everything about being a good wife for Arel. Evans burst into tears of joy. But Lena was shocked and immediately said, "I came to learn sword skills only." Farah said, "I have free time for both. I can teach you the sword and also wife lessons." Lena looked at Evans to calm Farah down, but she was surprised that he agreed too. After his wife's death, he was worried about Lena's future because he only knew how to teach her the sword. So of course he was happy that Farah would teach her some household matters. Farah then reassured him saying, "I will take care of Lena." Evans thanked her and said he would return to his work and leave Lena in Farah's care and asked Lena to do her best. Lena, of course, was sitting there not understanding how things turned so suddenly like this. All this time, Arel's father was in his office working on magic research, and he wasn't surprised when Arel entered because he heard all the noise. Arel asked him about the research news. He said he is very close to an important discovery that could be an ultimate technique if his hypothesis is correct. By the way, he asked him, "So you're back, and with a nice girl, huh?" Arel didn't deny it, but described her as beautiful more than nice, and more importantly, he came to talk to him about something. He said, "I defeated Farah in a spar and came to you now, so you can teach me magic." But his father replied and said, "It's impossible for you to learn magic. Forget about it." At that time, Farah was in the kitchen with Lena, trying of course to teach her cooking. Lena said she would try with all her effort, but she really doesn't know anything except using the sword. Listen. While she was using the knife to cut a cabbage, she hit the table with all her strength and immediately broke it. Lena apologized, and Farah said, "Don't worry, we'll start teaching you the basics from scratch, as if you don't know anything at all." After a while, Arel and Leon finished repairing the table. Arel, while arranging the tools, asked why he didn't use magic to fix it quickly. Leon said that Farah prefers working with her hands. "But since you want to see magic used, I won't refute your request for you." He held the broken mug and cast a spell to repair it, and indeed he managed to restore it easily as it was. After that, as they continued arranging things, his father said to Arel, "Don't set high hopes on magic. You tried to prove that even someone without a class can learn the sword, but magic needs a large mana pool, and training, unfortunately, doesn't increase mana, even if you trained for 100 years. Arel said, "Right, it's impossible for me to use magic without a lot of mana. But if I had a mana pool, could I use magic?" Leon said, "It's possible to learn spells even without a sorcerer class, as long as you have a mana pool, but most likely you don't have one. If you did, you would have accidentally performed some kind of magic before." Arel said he was sure he had a mana pool, because when he was in the summer city, he was consuming a lot of holy water. So Lilia brought him mysterious potions of mana pool replacement. Lena warned him not to drink them because they could be poison, but he thought if he drank poison, he might gain a poison-resistant skill and immediately drank it. In the end, it wasn't poison, and he felt something strange in his body and said it was very likely to be mana. And if that's true, his father saw that he could indeed learn magic, so he agreed to teach him. They started training immediately. He asked, "The last time you felt you actually had mana in your body?" When Arel confirmed he felt the mana, his father asked him to try to move it and concentrate it in one point. Arel tried, and in the end, nothing happened, and then a faint blue light appeared in his hand. His father was overjoyed. The light, even if simple, was proof that Arel indeed had mana. Even if the amount was small, it was enough that he could learn magic one day. Earl felt dizzy. That small light consumed all the mana he had, literally. His father told him that he must work on increasing his mana pool capacity before teaching him spells. But this work is very arduous and tiresome, and his father will try with him to teach him quickly. The next day, Earl went to the tool shop and left a pile of gold on the counter to buy all the mana potions they had. And from then on, he kept emptying and refilling his mana pool to increase its size. After 6 months, his mana pool grew enough for him to stabilize a mana ball, and his father congratulated him that he finally succeeded and told him that this is excellent work, but you still have a long way to go because the current mana pool is like that of a 10-year-old child. So 10-year-old child. He gave him a paper with a magical text and explained that normally with the sorcerer class, the spell scripture for the incantation automatically comes to your mind. But since Earl doesn't have the skills, he needs to memorize the scripture for every spell he wants to use, and this is, of course, very difficult. That's why Leon suggested he go to the Magic City to learn the basics there. But he must first learn how to control his mana to the minimum level allowed for entry into the Magic City. We see Lena beginning to learn household duties, and we see her pouring a cup of tea. She says, "I've been learning for 3 years now, and I've pretty much learned everything." The first time she tastes the tea, she likes it very much and says to her, "May God bless you, you'll become a skilled housewife." She tells her your skills have improved a lot, so Lena is very happy with her words. Suddenly, they hear the sound of Arel's little sister crying. When she comes to them, she tells them that Arel isn't in his room and left this letter for her. When they look at the letter he left, it's written that he left and is going to the City of Magic. His mother hugs her and says, "Don't be sad, he's wanted to go to the City of Magic for a long time to learn there, and he'll definitely be back when he's done." Lena, of course, when she sees Arel's sister sad and crying, remembers what she did in the past when she left her family and went to the City of Swords. She says, "My family must have been sad, exactly like Arel's little sister." After that, Arel's mother prepares Lena and says to her, "Don't leave like Arel, stay here with us." Lena says to her, "I still have many things I want to learn from you." Then she talks to her daughter, Mira, and says, "As long as Arel will be fine at the Magic Academy, that's the most important thing to me." After that, we go to Arel and see him sitting in the carriage. He asks the driver, "How much longer do we have?" The driver says, "About 2 to 3 days." The driver is surprised and says to him, "You're very strange. 3 years ago you went to the City of Swords, then returned to your home again, and now you want to go to the Magic Academy." A young boy sitting in the carriage named Kito says to him, "Are you coming with us to the Magic Academy to take the entrance exam there?" Arel says, "Yes, I'm going to take the exam." But Kito replies, "But you're old now. Why did you delay going to take the exams? It seems you've been taking them many times before but kept failing." A girl replies to Kito and says, "You can't talk to someone older than you like that. You have to respect him. It's enough that he's been trying all these years to pass the exam." It seems they are all convinced that Arel goes to take the academy exam and fails, which is why he's taking it at an older age. This girl's name is Kofa, and she keeps arguing with Kito until the third girl with them, named Cold, calms them down and says, "Calm down, the journey is still long, we have 2 days ahead of us. No need to argue now so early." Then Kito asks Arel, "What type of magic do you specialize in?" He says, "I specialize in red magic." Kito doesn't really understand the types of magic, but remembers his father talking to him about magic types before he left. He tells him that the magic skills anyone acquires differ from person to person. He tells him, "In your case, you have no restrictions and can use any type of magic you want." He starts explaining to him that red magic is fire magic, blue magic is water and ice magic, and green magic is air and weather magic. He tells him that white magic is light magic, and black magic is dark magic. Then Arel tells Kito, "I'm not proficient in any type of these magics because I have no class." One of the girls laughs and says to Kito, "He's joking with you. It's impossible for anyone without a class to have the desire to go to the Magic Academy to take the exam there." When they don't believe him, he shows them his guild card showing he has no class. So of course they are shocked and can't believe it. They say to him, "How? But you have no class and you're coming to take the magic exam." He says to them, "I've talked about this topic a lot with other people, and I don't like to repeat myself." Suddenly, the carriage they are riding in stops. The horse appears scared and won't move. It seems so frightened it's about to faint. Arel says to them, "That sound is the sound of a wild troll monster that all the animals in the forest are afraid of." Cold starts to panic and get scared, but Kofa says to her, "Calm yourself. No matter what monster it is, the three of us are mages, so we should be able to defeat it easily." Suddenly, they look at the forest and see the troll monster come out from among the trees. But after a second, they see the troll monster fly through the air, and a much larger monster appears, the one who did that to it. When they first see it, they are terrified. Kaido says, "There's no way we can defeat it," and remains scared, trembling. He says, "I wonder how we should deal with it. The situation looks bad, but he encourages himself in the end and says, "If I use all my magical energy, I can defeat it." He takes out his wand and uses fire magic, launching a large fireball. But when the fireball explodes in the monster's face, it has no effect on it whatsoever. He starts to get scared and panic. She says to him, "I told you, you just made the monster angry and made it come to kill us quickly." Suddenly, our hero Arel uses the explosion skill, and the giant monster literally evaporates and disappears. Of course, they are all in disbelief and don't know how that happened. But suddenly, they hear Arel saying, "I was supposed to lower the power of my explosion." They realize he was the one who did it, and that Arel used the red magic used by the highest class of mages. After that, the driver says to Arel, "Thank you for saving me for the second time." Kaido here starts apologizing to Arel and says, "I'm sorry for the way I treated you. I didn't know you were such an amazing mage." He says to him, "From now on, consider me your student because you've now become my role model, and I wish to be as strong as you one day." Kofa comes and says to him, "The guild card you showed us is clearly forged because it's impossible for someone like you to have no class." But our hero Arel ignores them and doesn't reply because he doesn't want the headache. Then they continue their journey. After 2 days, they arrive at the Magic Kingdom. When they arrive, they thank the driver. We see Kaido here hovering around Arel and doesn't want to leave him at all. So, the girls are surprised and say, "How did Kaido, the arrogant and stubborn boy, become like an obedient dog to Arel and doesn't want to leave him?" They say, "We need to watch him to find out his true story, and we don't need to tell anyone we meet that Arel possesses strong magic." When they arrive at the Magic Academy, Kaido asks him, "Are you going to take the red magic exam or which one exactly?" Arel is surprised here and says to him, "Are there many types of exams?" He says, "Yes, depending on your class. There are exams for red magic, yellow magic, and also green magic." Cold is very nervous about the exam, so Kaido starts encouraging her and says, "I don't want you to fail because if you fail, I don't want to know you again." He goes to the reception desk, fills out the form, and prepares to enter the exam. He is surprised they accepted him even though he has no class. She tells the staff member anyone can participate in the exam even if they have no class. He says the situation here is different from the City of Swords and he is happy about the encounter. On their way, Kaido tells him, "I'm confident you will pass these exams easily." When they enter, the exam has begun. We see one of the students using fire magic and attacking a statue, succeeding in his first test. The next contestant comes who appears very arrogant. He keeps mocking all the present students saying, "Your magic is very weak compared to mine. Watch the greatness I will show now." Zun. The teacher is surprised that one of the students coming to take the exam possesses very strong magic despite his young age. The student asks the teacher, "Can I burn and destroy this statue?" The teacher says, "There's no problem if you can actually do it." And indeed, the boy uses the volcanic explosion magic, releasing a very strong fiery magical energy at the statue. He thinks he managed to burn it, but the statue is unaffected by his magic. We learn that the statue is very strong, made of rare mithril stone, and is very difficult to burn or melt. At that moment, Kaido keeps laughing at him and says, "My teacher will be able to melt this statue in seconds." Kaido hits him on the head and says, "Stop bragging and sit quietly." The boy keeps laughing, thinking Kaido is joking, and says, "Then show me what your teacher can do." I can do. Ol says this is my chance to try my fire magic on a statue made of mithril to discover the extent of my strength. He immediately uses the volcanic explosion skill, and we see a powerful laser beam hit the head of the statue. The boy keeps laughing at Arel, saying he is weak and his magic was just a thin thread, and that the statue is standing there unharmed. But suddenly the statue starts to melt. The boy and Kaido are literally shocked. They think he is cheating in the exam, but he tells them, I used the volcanic explosion skill, but I concentrated its power and reduced its size. After that, Arel leaves them and goes to Kofa, who has just finished her exam and passed. She is surprised that Arel came to her. He says, I came to take the exam. She says, weren't you taking the red magic exam? But his turn comes immediately, and he immediately uses ice magic, creating very strong arrows that literally shatter the statue made of mithril. Kofa is stunned, but Arel leaves her afterwards and goes to the next exam, which is the green magic exam. When he goes there, he finds everyone waiting outside. He says to her, why are you scared? Did you fail the exam? She says, I'm scared and very nervous. That's why I haven't gone in yet. She asks Arel, how do you calm yourself and your nerves before an exam? He says to her, I've never been nervous before. I'm always calm. Stranger still, Arel asks her, what does the feeling of nervousness and anxiety feel like? She says to him, that feeling comes from fear. Arel then gives her some advice, saying, even if you fail the exam, you must be convinced that your life won't stop because of one failure. You must try more than once until you succeed and achieve everything you want. These words encourage her and make her dare to enter the exam. Afterwards, Arel enters the exam and uses the tornado skill, literally destroying the windmill used for the test and smashing it. After he finishes his test and passes, it's Cold's turn. The teacher tells her, you must make this windmill fly. Cold, of course, is scared and terrified, but she remembers Arel's motivating words and begins to feel encouraged. Later, we learn that Arel completed the yellow magic and white magic exams and is currently heading to begin the black magic exam. On his way, he finds a girl shouting and looking for a creature named Jory. He says to her, I heard a sound coming from that box. She runs towards the box and finally pulls out a lizard with a strange shape. Suddenly, Kido finds a skeleton talking to him from behind. He gets scared and immediately knocks its head off, but is surprised that the skeleton is talking. Its name is Latalia, and it says to him, how dare you hit me like that? This Latalia is an employee working in the black magic department, and says, always, all the students are afraid to take the black magic exams, and I don't know why. After he finishes the exam, he comes out but finds Kaido and the girls calling him. When he asks them what they are arguing about, we learn the reason for the argument is that each one wants Arel to join their magic department. Each of them is trying to convince Arel that their department is the best. Here Arel calms them down and says to them, I'm not going to join just one department. I plan to study all the magic departments here at the academy. In short, he wants to learn all types of magic to become the ultimate mage king. See his friends being very shocked that he holds memberships to all the magic schools here at the academy. They are saying they can't believe that someone could succeed in all schools and be present in them all at the same time. Arel here is upset because he doesn't know how he will attend all the classes, since all the schedules are overlapping and he doesn't know how to organize them. But then Arel also notices that the exams carry high grades, so he says he doesn't necessarily have to attend the lessons, and the most important thing is to focus on the exams because they have the highest grades. But Colt tells him that he must attend the classes because the teachers give very important information, especially about magic incantations, which usually aren't found in the books. So Arel says to them the solution is simple. You attend the classes in my place and I'll borrow your notes. Of course, they all agree to help him and tell him, your wishes are our commands, you are a leader. They ask him later what he will do about the other schools they aren't in, like black magic. He tells them not to worry, black magic doesn't even have classes because Talia told him that no one attends classes there, and it's rare to find a student enrolled in the black magic school. Kaido then says to him, come on, let's go attend the first red magic class so we don't miss it. As soon as they arrive at the class, they meet the arrogant bullying student Royce. When Arel ignores him completely, Royce calls out to him and says, are you just passing by without greeting me? Then Kaido mocks him and says, don't talk to my teacher that way. But Royce retorts saying, I only lost one round, and says that his teacher Arel only won by luck, nothing more. He says it's impossible for him to possess the skill or talent that I have, and he's confident he will defeat him next time in any challenge they enter against each other. Arel says to him, "Why do we have to challenge each other? I'm not even a sorcerer anyway, and I don't have any rank or magic class." Royce is shocked and surprised by this. Then the teacher arrives and tells everyone to get to their places so they can start. But Royce immediately asks his teacher, "What is Earl's rank?" "Because he tells me he is without a class." The teacher, upon checking Earl's file, says that he is indeed without any rank or magic class at all. Royce is of course annoyed that someone without a magic class was able to defeat him in the initial tests. The first class finally begins, and we see the teacher starting to write magic incantations on the board. But Kaito is sitting there not understanding anything and says, "What's with this magic incantation? It's so long, why?" But Earl feels bored because the teacher is starting with the very basics and he already knows all these things. He knows that magic incantations are important for beginners so they can use magic easily. The teacher tells them, "I know learning magic incantations is difficult at first, but with time you will be able to memorize them and use them, and even develop them to strengthen yourselves." He tells them, "When your level rises, you'll find you can develop these incantations and even make very simple shortcuts to make using them easier." Kaito realizes that Earl can actually use magic without saying its incantation because his level is advanced. When Kaito gets bored attending the class, he decides to go to the Green Magic School because there is more practical training than theory there, and they are preparing to learn flight magic. He tells Colt, "I'm very excited because I don't know how to use flight magic at all." She is surprised, saying to him, "You're supposed to use advanced magic, how come you can't use flight magic? Or have you never tried?" He says to her, "When I asked my dad to teach me flight magic at home, he refused and said using flight magic is forbidden, because he's afraid his mother would hit." The teacher begins the practical training and tells them, "I want each of you to imagine yourself as a bird and just let go. You will find yourself flying. I personally have never seen easier training than this to learn how to fly." Colt, when she tries, actually starts to fly but can't control her balance and falls to the ground. Earl says, "I never imagined the flight incantation was this easy." When he sees all our classmates mocking Colt for falling, he starts to motivate her. Immediately she isn't affected by their words and decides to try again. He says to himself, "Since the struggling Colt managed to fly so easily, then it should be easy for me." He immediately uses a wind incantation, but the incantation is a bit too strong, and of course he can't control himself during the flight and immediately falls to the ground. As usual, in every school there must be a bully. A student comes to them and says, "Why are you making it so complicated for yourselves?" He tells them that flight magic is very simple and doesn't need anything, and shows them how he can fly and control himself with ease. He tells them, "I've won all the flight races held at this school." When Earl hears the word race, he doesn't know what this race is. Colt tells him it's a tournament held every year where you have to lap a specific track, and the one who completes it in the fastest time possible is the winner. This tournament is called the flight race. The student tells him, "You have to learn to fly first to participate in the tournament." The student then asks the teacher when the next race is, and they say it's in 2 months. Earl starts to get excited and decides to learn to fly quickly so he can participate in the tournament. But before the student leaves, he warns Earl, "Be careful, no matter how hard you try to learn to fly, you can never beat me in this tournament because it's my favorite tournament." He tries to find a way to learn flight magic quickly. Colt tells him, "You think 2 months is a short period?" He says to her, "On the contrary, 2 months is a very good period, and I'm confident I can learn to fly in less time than that." Later, we find that Colt and Kofa ask to meet Kaito. When Kaito comes to them, he says, "Why do you want to meet me at night?" They tell him they heard that a ghost appears at night here near the academy. Kaito at first doesn't believe it and keeps shouting. They tell him, "Lower your voice so the ghost doesn't hear." He starts to feel strange afterwards and says to them, "You definitely brought me here to help you because you're scared." Kofa also notices that Kaito started to get scared when he heard about ghosts and says, "I know you're always afraid to enter the bathroom alone at night because you're afraid of ghosts." But Kaito says to her, "That was in the past. Now I'm not afraid because I'm a great sorcerer." And as usual, the two of them start bickering loudly. Then Colt starts to calm them down so the ghost doesn't hear them. But suddenly they notice that there is indeed a ghost moving behind them near the window coming towards them. They see Kaito and Kofa are very scared and start screaming. Colt of course didn't notice because her back was to the window, but when they warn her, they all notice it. Suddenly a masked person enters and puts his hand on Colt's mouth so she doesn't scream. Kaito here says to him, "Get away from her and let her go." He tries to use his fire magic, but of course he's scared and terrified and might mess it up. We then learn that this masked person is Earl. He says to them, "What are you doing here?" Kofa yells at him, "What are you doing here at night?" He tells them, "I'm training in magic right now," and shows them that he now has the ability to fly and has learned it. He tells them, Every night I train myself in flight magic to master it in a very short time so I can participate in the competition. They say to him, so all the sounds we've been hearing lately weren't ghosts, it was you? Arel tells them, I don't want to waste any time at all, and I try to learn a new skill every day, even when I'm sleeping. We learn that even while sleeping, he starts training his mana control. Mashallah, Arel doesn't waste any time at all, even while sleeping. And as usual, his words motivate Kaido greatly, so he says to him, from now on, I won't sleep much like you, and I'll try to develop my magic skills every day. After he leaves them, sleep doesn't come to him, so he decides to go to the Black Magic School and request membership to enter their library. Tala says to him, what do you want to do in the library? He says to her, your library is full of books with very important and valuable information, and I'd like to learn them. The next day, when he attends the new class, we see him stop his teacher and tell him there is a mistake in the incantation he wrote. The teacher is surprised because it's the first time a student has stopped him and said he has errors. The teacher says to Arel, come fix it. And indeed, Arel writes the same incantation as his, and not only that, but he also writes a shortcut for it. When the teacher reads the incantation, he finds it similar to his own, and he can even shorten it. The teacher says, they say your skills are very high, but the incantation you wrote is dangerous as anyone can use it because it might cause a big explosion. Kaido says to him, be careful, man, Arel, I don't want to use an incantation that hurts me later. Arel says to him, don't be afraid, if you get used to it, you'll be able to use it easily. The teacher then says to him, you seem like a tough guy who understands incantations well. What do you say we give you a small test? If you pass, you'll be promoted directly to the second year. Of course, Arel agrees. But the student Royce is very upset and asks the teacher to also participate in the test. If he passes, he should be promoted too. The teacher agrees and takes both of them to the test arena. In front of them is a very large corridor, and at the end of this corridor is a cell. This cell is opened and a monster comes out. The task is to finish off this monster from a distance using magic. If you fail to finish it off or let the monster get close to you, then you have failed the test. Royce gets excited and decides to go first. He goes down to the fighting arena very excited. Immediately the cell is opened and the Mundora monster comes out, which looks like a wild bull. Immediately the bull charges at Royce. Royce then uses fire magic and keeps attacking it, but the Monitor monster manages to dodge all his attacks. Arel is surprised that the fire magic he is using is much stronger than what he used in the test. The teacher tells him that student Royce's level is increasing greatly, but he has a problem. He is always hasty and attacks randomly without planning at all. He says he needs a lot of experience to pass this test. Despite Royce's attempts to hit the Monitor monster, he fails to land a single blow on it. Then the Monitor monster gets close to him and prepares to deliver the final blow. But suddenly the Monitor monster disappears from in front of him in seconds, and Royce falls to the ground out of fear. When he asks how the monster disappeared from in front of him so suddenly, the teacher says, you are now in the school of sorcerers, and it's impossible for us to let our students get hurt. Of course, he is upset that he lost the test. The teacher says, I definitely know your level, why did I let you enter this test? He realizes the teacher did this to make him reconsider his approach and start developing himself to pass these tests easily later. The teacher tells him that students need to study for at least 2 years to pass this test, and he is confident that Royce can pass it in less time than that. Then it's our hero Arel's turn. He goes down to the fighting arena and the cell is opened. But what comes out isn't the Monitor monster that came out for Royce. This is a monster evolved from the Monitor and much stronger. This makes Arel ask, aren't we supposed to be taking the same test? Suddenly, an employee arrives and tells the teacher that a mistake has occurred and the monsters were switched. The teacher becomes very afraid for Arel and tells him he must withdraw because this monster is very strong and could finish him or her. But our hero Arel doesn't care and says to him, leave it, I can defeat it easily. And indeed, the monster charges at our hero Arel, but immediately Arel starts to concentrate and creates fire arrows and throws them at. The teacher is surprised that he made these arrows without saying any incantation at all. But the monster manages to dodge these arrows and jumps over them. Here the teacher says this monster is very evolved, and he is afraid for Arel. We see the fire arrows change direction and return to hit the monster from behind, knocking it to the ground. We learn that this was our hero Arel's plan from the beginning, as he wanted to hit its joints from behind. Then he uses a concentrated fire incantation and it immediately descends on the bull, finishing it off. Of course, his teacher is astonished by the great power and how he managed to finish off the monster so easily. He says to him, congratulations on your promotion, teacher. Starting tomorrow, you will go directly to the second year. When he meets his friends, they notice he is depressed and say to him, what's bothering you? You were supposed to be promoted to the second year. He says to them, unfortunately, what happened was an exception, and what I learned from the rules here is that these exceptions only work in one school. He wanted to take these tests in all the magic schools he is studying in to get promoted immediately. And go to Earl's house. We see his mother teaching Liana how to cook, but it's clear that Liana is very clumsy, doesn't know how to cook, almost burns everything and ruins the food. Earl's sister keeps making fun of her, but Earl's mother comforts her, saying, "Don't be upset, everything is difficult at first, then it becomes easy." Then we return to Earl, who is with Colette, talking to the Blue Magic school teacher because Earl also wants an exception to be promoted to the 2nd grade. The teacher tells him that the promotion test exception is granted only once a year, and he already used it at the Red Magic school test. So he says to her, "Then test me, I am ready for any test because I don't want to waste my time in useless study classes." The teacher gets angry and says, "Do you mean my lessons are useless and have no value?" She says to him, "Since you're so strong, I am ready to challenge you to a duel." We see Earl preparing for the challenge, and Colette is very scared because this teacher shows no mercy. She tells Earl that physical assault is forbidden and he is only allowed to use magic. She tells him, "Don't be upset if my magic causes you injuries." Earl says to her, "I agree to any rules because I am confident I will win the challenge." His confidence provokes the teacher, and she immediately uses Blizzard Storm magic, attacks him with a magical vortex and surrounds him with it. Then she activates ice magic on him, trapping him inside it. Colette is of course very scared for Earl. The teacher says to him, "You keep saying you're great and unmatched, yet you can't dodge my simple attack." But she is shocked when Earl starts hitting the ice barrier and manages to break it. She is surprised to find that he had created a magical shield to protect himself from her attack. After that, Earl says to her, "Now it's my turn to attack," and decides to use the Ice Arrow spell. She says to him, "Do you think your spell can defeat me?" But he surprises her by summoning a very large number of ice arrows. She says to him, "I saw you in the test. This is your favorite magic skill." She says, "I can do it easily and summon the exact same number as..." Indeed, each one attacks with their ice arrow spell, and they manage to counter each other's attacks. After that, Earl says to her, "I'm not finished yet," and decides to double the number of ice arrows. She says to him, "I can double them too and reach 100 ice arrows." Colette is of course shocked by the number of ice arrows Earl summoned and says she can only manage 2. Then the teacher says to him, "There's no use. No matter how many ice arrows you summon, I can increase the same number and more, and I will counter your attack." But the surprise here is that Earl manages to summon ice arrows from the right, the left, and from above her. She is shocked by this large number and says, "It's impossible for a 1st grade student to summon all these numbers without saying a magic incantation." As Earl prepares to attack her, she immediately creates an ice barrier to protect herself from his attack. While she is countering the attack, she is very happy and says, "The ice arrows breaking against my barrier will start increasing greatly, thus strengthening my magical barrier. I will save my mana energy this way, exhaust his mana, and then use my attack magic to win the challenge." She finds that Earl's attack suddenly stops and says to him, "Have you finished? Did you give up?" He says to her, "All that attack was just a decoy." Suddenly she looks up and finds that Earl has summoned a very large ice arrow and is preparing to attack with it, aiming right for her head. She feels trapped by the ice barrier she was creating and doesn't know how to escape. She decides to quickly create an ice barrier above her to protect herself, but Earl's ice arrow is very strong and manages to penetrate her barrier, breaking it and falling on her. Thus, Earl wins the challenge against his teacher. Afterwards, when he meets his friends, they are very happy that he was also promoted at the Blue Magic School. They tell him that he is the first to get an exception and be promoted in 2 schools at once. Earl tells them, "I won't stop here, now it's the Green Magic School's turn." Then he takes Colette, and they go to the Green Magic School, but the employee tells him, "We cannot promote you. There must be a special reason." Earl says to her, "The teacher can make an exception, just like what happened for me before." She says to him, "We are different from the other magic schools and we don't have that law." Earl gets angry with her, but Colette calms him down. The employee starts looking for any way to help him, and finds out that long ago, the school principal made an exception for one of the students. She says that if you can meet the school principal and discuss the matter with him, he might make an exception for you as he did before. But then she says to him, "Unfortunately, our principal won't be available, and I don't think you can meet him in the coming period because he is busy." She says to him, "The principal would never waste his time to meet one student, and if you try to cause any problems, you will be immediately expelled from the school." Colette then says to him, "Why are you in such a hurry for promotion?" He says to her, "I have a goal. There is a person I want to surpass in using magic and prove to him that I am stronger than him." Then the employee says to him, "All right, trust in God and don't make a scene. If you don't leave now, I will expel you." Colette then says to him, "Come on, let's go. I have a great plan." We learn that her plan is for Earl to participate in the flight competition. This competition will be attended by the principal. If Arel manages to win the competition, he will have a chance to meet the principal and present his request to take a test and get an exception to be promoted to the second grade. The employee likes the idea very much and says to him, "Be careful, the competition is not easy because 300 students participate in it, and not all of them are from the first grade." Arel says to her, "I am confident that I can win the competition and meet the school principal." Indeed, he goes to start the challenge. We see his friends cheering for him and being very confident that he will win. Then the bully student comes and says to him, "What brought you here?" He says to him, "The last time I saw you, you couldn't even fly." But Arel didn't remember him and said, "Who are you?" The student gets very upset and says to him, "You'll know who I am well when I win the champion." We see the commentator saying that this competition includes students from the first, second, and third years, and the competition this year will be very few. We learn that the conditions of the competition require them to pass through the main gate of the Magic City, go around it until they return to the starting point again. Present at the competition, of course, is the principal of the Green Magic School, along with a group of observers, including one who is handsome, and all the girls like him and are infatuated with. Here, when Kaido finds that Colette and the others are admiring the teacher and not cheering for Arel, he keeps shouting at them, telling them to focus on the competition, and starts cheering for Arel, saying, "You are like me and my highest role model, and I don't want you to lose any challenge." The flight competition begins, and we see the 300 competitors starting to fly. They start bumping into each other, and some of them fall. The audience is cheering, and the commentator says that this competition will be different because there are new competitors we are seeing for the first time. Then we see one of the students who couldn't control himself and fell to the ground. After that, they notice that only 15 students are in the lead. The one currently in first place is the student Diani, who is from the third grade. This student has won all the races she participated in before, and it is expected that she will be first and win the competition. Then we see the bully student flying, and Arel comes right next to him. He is surprised by his speed and says to him, "How can you fly at the same level as me?" Arel says to him, "By the way, I haven't used my full power until now, but I don't want to consume my mana energy quickly." The boy gets angry and says to him, "By the way, I'm like you two, and I don't want to use all my energy and I can increase my speed normally." They then reach the stage where they exit through the gate and are supposed to control their speed to be able to turn left without losing their balance. The first group to exit cannot control themselves and immediately fall into the water, but the bully student manages to control his speed and can turn left without falling. He is surprised for the second time that Arel reached him easily, thinking he had fallen into the water when he exited. We see the group led by Diani managing to exit the gate easily and still maintaining their position in first place. At that moment, the handsome observer is surprised that students still in their first year could reach this advanced stage of the race, but he still expects student Diani to win. But immediately, Arel and the bully student manage to catch up to her. The bully student says to her, "I am the one who will win the race." She is surprised that they are still continuing until now, so she laughs at them and says, "I haven't increased my speed yet." Indeed, she increases her speed and flies faster than before. Arel is forced to increase his speed as well. The bully student is surprised that both of them have outpaced him, and he of course cannot increase his speed and his mana energy begins to weaken, and he feels tired. Then we see that Arel managed to reach next to student Diani, but he had used his maximum speed and couldn't increase it further. Oh dare. This way he says, "I won't be able to beat her," and says 2 months is too short a time to increase my flight skill and speed. At that moment, student Diani increases her speed and races ahead. He says, "I have no choice but to use my trump card." He starts kicking the air with his leg to give himself a strong push forward, and this way he will be able to catch up to her. The observer is shocked by the strange skill Arel used and says that his leg muscles are very strong to allow him to use the kicking skill and compress the air to increase his speed. He says, "The first time I've seen anyone use this skill." Indeed, Arel manages to catch up to her and increases his speed noticeably. They are close to reaching the entrance gate. Arel immediately increases his speed and manages to pass student Diani. She of course gets angry and wonders how he can race her with speed higher than hers. They say that his leg skill doesn't allow him to control himself to enter the gate, but Arel manages to manipulate the air with his hand to adjust his balance and can enter the gate simply controlling his speed. In the end, Arel succeeds in reaching the finish line and wins the flight competition. Student Diani arrives after him, taking second place and immediately greets him, saying, "I really enjoyed racing with you, but next time I will beat you." Then the bully student arrives, taking third place and is literally exhausted and unable to move. Afterwards, Arel goes to meet the school principal and hands him the certificate and medal. But Arel says to him, "I have a request. I want you to make an exception for me to be promoted to the second grade." He says, "Your skills in the race impressed me greatly, and I didn't expect a first grade student to be able to defeat third grade students. Therefore, I agree to this exception and am ready to promote you to the second. Arel is finally happy that he passed the promotion tests at the red, blue, and green magic schools and says, I have completed half the journey, and the second half remains for me. We continue our story and see Arel going to the yellow magic school because he also wants an exception to pass their tests. But the employee tells him that the registration period has ended and says that finding a new appointment for him now will be very difficult because the schedules are all full. She tells him to wait for next year, as a new slot might open. When he realizes he has to wait a whole year, he is very upset and tells her to find a solution to get him an exception. He tells her he had prepared a very new type of golem that he wanted to use in the exam. Suddenly, someone appears behind him and says, "You said golem." Arel says yes, he made a special golem and wanted to use it in the exam. We learn that the person speaking to him is a teacher at the yellow magic school named Roger, who says, since you've created a new golem, I will register you as my assistant, and this way you can take the test normally. Arel is very happy at that moment, but the employee says, I can't believe you became Roger's assistant. He asks if there's a problem with being his assistant. She says that teacher Roger is the best person in the entire world at using golems, and in every event he holds many battles with all the students he recruits. Since you've become his assistant, it means he will enter a test against you and use his golems to challenge. She tells him that Roger has no mercy in any test he conducts, and you will most likely lose to him. The employee says she wants him to reconsider his decision before proceeding, but Arel is excited and insists on entering the challenge against him. The event begins at the Yellow Magic School. We see the faculty members using their earth magic to create shapes, and the audience is very happy with the shapes they are making. Then it's teacher Rogers. He begins by telling them, today I have a challenge with my assistant Arel, and I will use my golem against the golem he managed to create. The students, of course, know that Arel will be his new victim. Roger begins summoning earth golems, which emerge from underground. Kaito notices that Roger's golem is different from any golem seen in the city before. Then Roger tells Arel, go on, summon your golem. Arel calls for his golem named Alpha. The audience and Roger are surprised that Arel's golem is made of metal. Arel begins explaining to Roger that his golem Alpha was made using alchemy magic, but it's controlled by earth magic so he can give it commands. The audience is shocked because it's the first time they've seen a golem made of metal. Even Roger can't believe it and says, are you kidding? It's impossible to control a golem made of metal because it would be too heavy. He says there must be someone hiding inside. When he removes its head, he is surprised to find no one inside and that Arel really created it using alchemy magic. But he notices that it's very lightweight and the metal it's made from is weak and easy to break. He tells Arel that his golem will be able to defeat it easily. Immediately, Roger orders his first golem to attack Arel's golem. Here, Arel's golem easily blocks the attack. Roger is surprised that his golem's arm broke, wondering how it broke despite Arel's golem being made of weak metal. He says he underestimated Arel's strength. He uses his mana to strengthen his golem, making its durability and sturdiness stronger. He tells Arel he is confident that this time he will defeat his golem and has all four of them attack at once. At that moment, Arel orders the golem Alpha to draw its swords. He tells Roger that the swords Alpha summoned cannot possibly stand up to his attack. Arel says, let's see now who will win. He orders Alpha to finish off all four of them. Indeed, with a single strike, the golem Alpha shatters all of Roger's golems. Roger is shocked and can't believe it. He asks how he taught the golem to use swordsman's. Arel explains that he made it from lightweight metal and made its joints flexible. Through earth magic, he made it reduce mana consumption and execute all his commands. He approaches Roger and says, so what do you think of my research? Do I deserve the promotion or not? Roger says, of course you deserve the promotion, and I want you to join my laboratory. I will speak to the school director to make an exception and promote you. Next, he goes to the White Magic School and meets the employee Keed, who tells him she is responsible for administering his promotion test to see if he will pass. He notices that her eyes are closed. He asks if she is okay. She says, of course, as you can see, I am blind. But if I look at your magic, I can determine your character. She approaches Arel to study his magic and is surprised by the immense, seemingly endless amount of mana energy. She asks how he can control it all. She becomes genuinely afraid and terrified of his great power. She takes him to the test site, which is a temple located underground. This temple belonged to a royal family that died out many years ago. She tells him that over all the years that have passed, magic has accumulated inside this temple, and a great number of undead have appeared. When he enters, he uses light magic to illuminate the place. She warns him to be careful because the undead are attracted to light and kill anyone, but Arel doesn't care and continues on his way. Any zombie monster that appears, he immediately eliminates with a single strike of his light magic. Keed, of course, senses everything and is surprised he is dispatching the undead so easily. She asks him, where are you going? He says he is going to the test location. She tells him that his test was to defeat the undead that he just eliminated and he has passed the test. Let's go back. While returning, there is one undead hiding, but Arel detects its location and uses light magic on it. This is the strongest of the undead and is surprised that Arel discovered its location so easily. The zombie is annoyed and tells Arel he is different from anyone he killed before. But Arel thinks he's foolish, increases the power of his light magic and easily eliminates him too. Upon exiting, Ki tells him that she felt his mana energy and senses he possesses great power, so she agrees to make an exception for him. Finally, only the Black Magic School remains. Arel goes there immediately afterward and spends time reading its books. Talia finds him reading and he startles her. He tells her he can't believe the Black Magic School has no promotion tests. She says, "Who would we even hold tests for? We don't have any students." He notices a large metal door that is always locked and asks why no one enters it. She tells him that behind that door, black magic experiments are conducted because their use is forbidden in the city outside. Arel takes a book from the Black Magic School and enters through the door to try out its spells. As soon as he opens the book, we see mana energy starting to pour out powerfully from the book, and then it suddenly disappears. When he looks up, he finds a demon sitting in the air, thanking him for helping it escape. The demon says it was trapped for many years inside that book and can't believe someone finally opened it to release him. The demon tells Arel it needs a powerful stimulus to return to the demon world. "So complete your good deed and become my victim. You clearly possess great mana energy. I need to take it over to return to the demon world." Immediately the demon attacks him, but Arel blocks the attack and says he won't allow it to destroy him. When he tries to use magic, he finds he can't. The demon says it's impossible for him to use magic because it has created a magic circle beneath him that nullifies any magic effect. Arel at that point doesn't care about using magic and attacks him physically, landing a blow to its head with his staff. But the demon has regeneration ability and can heal itself. It is surprised that Arel managed to land a blow with his staff. After that, Arel continues his attack, delivering countless endless blows. With each strike, the demon shrinks in size until eventually, the demon's body becomes very small, like a tiny creature. The demon begs Arel not to. Arel says, "I won't let you return to the demon world. I want you to be my servant." He immediately places a control spell on its chest and tells the demon that every time it disobeys his orders, it will feel intense pain. Indeed, every time the demon tries to do something to annoy him, it feels severe pain until it finally agrees to be his servant. The employee Lena comes and is surprised that he managed to subdue a demon and control it. Afterward, Arel meets Kaito and the girls, who congratulate him on finally passing the promotion tests in all the magic schools. They tell him he is the first person to ever get an exception in all the magic schools and can't believe his great power. Suddenly, they notice the demon with him. Kaito keeps playing with it and hitting it, asking, "What is this beautiful pet?" The demon is annoyed that they call it a pet. Kova immediately hits it, but Colette takes it and gives it back to Kaito, saying, "Sorry, we were afraid it would die in our hands." He says it won't die that easily. He orders the demon to go get him some bread. When the demon refuses and disobeys, it feels intense pain and is forced to agree in the end. It says, "One day, I will break the spell you put on me and take revenge on you and finish you all." Next, we see an important meeting at the magic school. All the teachers from all the magic schools are present. They are discussing the curriculum for the new school year and the budgets for each school. Here we see the director of the Black Magic School is very upset because his school's budget is the lowest. They tell him it's because he has no students, and furthermore, his magic is useless. The directors of the Red and White Magic Schools keep bullying him, saying his magic is not beneficial and he only makes spells that don't help the city. He listens to this deeply upset. After the meeting, he tells an employee, "We will hold a competition where all the magic schools will participate. If your school wins the competition, then we might increase your budget." The employee tells him he must try hard in the upcoming competition because it's his last chance. We see the Black Magic Director is sad about the low budget and says they are effectively ending the Black Magic School. "I must find a solution to win the competition." We return to Arel and his friends. They tell him there is a competition being held between all the magic schools and ask if he will participate. He says, "Of course I will participate in the competition, but I haven't registered yet." Tito and his friends are happy that Arel will participate so they can watch his great talent. At that moment, the demon asks Arel, "Are you participating on behalf of a magic school since all the schools are competing against each other?" Arel says, "Tomorrow morning I will meet the school directors to talk to them about this matter." He realizes the demon has a lot of information about this competition and asks him, "Are you more excited about this competition than I am?" The demon says, "I don't care at all about any competition humans hold." We then go to the director of the Black Magic School. We see him in a secret room beginning to perform a very dangerous spell. He says this is my chance to show them the capabilities of the Black Magic School so they respect it afterward. He then summons a beast from the demon world, a beast known as the Absolute Beast. As soon as it approaches him, it immediately eats him. The teacher says, I didn't order you to do that. You must listen to me because I am your master. And with that, our summary ends for now. But the story of our hero Arel is not over yet. What is the story of the absolute beast that was summoned from the demon world? If you are excited, hero, for the rest of the story's events, don't forget to support us with a like and subscription. See you in the next video. Bye.